Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. Marvel, start to compete with Tony for property. Chapter 81 Old Wage Earners. Seeking subscription. Lewis never considered Thor's life or death. In fact, even if Thor is dead, Odin has a way to bring Thor's soul back to life. Abandoning the unconscious Thor, Lewis and Langton began to discuss which kind of alcohol was more suitable for the dwarf family. If you want to keep dwarf, the most essential thing is good wine. I need a workshop and a magma vein, Langton said. Common's flame temperature is not enough to smelt ores. I will arrange all these. Lewis nodded, and several sets of armors of his own depended on Langton to build them. With a wave of his hand, Lewis gathered all the broken pieces of the destroyer together. Phil Coulson and others could only watch helplessly, and Lewis plucked too much. Stay a little, a little. You have taken so much, will you die if you keep a little? Lewis and Langton's true 530 is to not let go of a little bit of debris, and take them all away. Phil Coulson felt his heart was bleeding. This time, S.H.I.E.L.D got nothing. Old wage earner. A large pile of metal fragments were collected into Langton's small package, which could preserve the divinity of these metals. Both the Hammer of the Storm and the Destroyer may have given birth to their own will and divinity, and recreating them will have better results. It was also the first time that Lewis knew that Langton's small package was actually an artifact. Seeing Lewis and Langton, who had searched and left cleanly, Phil Coulson and others breathed a sigh of relief. The pressure brought by Lewis was too great. As the existence of killing the Destroyer, even if Lewis had no armor, standing there was a deterrent. Finally gone. Hawkeye lamented that he had scraped the whole way through this battle, which made him feel very lost. Such a person, neither S.H.I.E.L.D nor Avengers can keep them. General Ross said with a sigh, I hope they won't become enemies. I think we should think about how to report this mission to Director Nick Fury. Phil Coulson wanted to cry but had no tears. That's the most important thing. How to write mission report. General Ross, Phil Coulson, you can do it, I like you. Hawkeye, Phil Coulson agent, come on. Phil Coulson finally understands why Fury likes to call mommy fuck so much. Phil Coulson looked at the empty surroundings with some frustration, and set his eyes on Thor. Bringing a god back to S.H.I.E.L.D, Fury should say nothing more. This is the rare good news during this period of time. Lewis opened the space barrier and brought Langton back to New York, which is the headquarters of the Stark industry. As for the establishment of workshops, it still needs to be done through Stark Industries. Asgard. Loki, holding the Odin scepter in his hand, felt flustered for no reason, and the Destroyer who kept in touch with the Odin scepter suddenly lost the news. Loki's face became ugly. Could it be that Wainer actually killed the Destroyer? Odin, who fell into a deep sleep, did not have too many surprises. The Destroyer set his combat power to drop when facing Thor, and Thor can solve it, which is definitely a matter of course. Only, Odin is still sad that Loki shot Thor. Although not related by blood, Odin has always felt that Loki and Thor should have a good relationship. Wait until both are of age, the one king of Asgard and the other king of Jotunheim. When the two join forces, peace will come. It's just that Thor didn't think about it at all. On the Earth, someone could actually crush the Destroyer. This was Odin's negligence. Odin, who fell into a deep sleep, does not have much power to manage external affairs, so he can only concentrate his own power as much as possible now. As he grew older, Odin felt that each of his Odin sleeps became longer. The Aesir Protoss has a long life, but it does not mean that they will not die. Globe, New York. When Lewis brought Langton to the Stark Industrial Building, Tony was experimenting with his new armor Mark-6. Unexpectedly, Lewis and Langton suddenly appeared, and Tony in the rapid flight had no time to avoid it. The backlash was on full blast, but Tony still charged towards Louis. Get out of the way, Louis, Tony yelled. Langdon saw Tony bumping over and immediately stopped in front of Louis. With one hand, he grabbed Tony who was rushing towards him. When Langdon saw Tony's Mark 6, he was stunned for a moment, and he held it in his hand and looked at it carefully. Very sophisticated armor, looks great. Langdon grabbed the Mark 6 and shook it, shaking Tony out of it. Pat! Tony fell face down on the ground. Oh shit, light on my armor, it's just an experimental model, Tony yelled. Although he didn't know the origin of this bearded dwarf, since it was brought back by Louis, Tony didn't have any objections. During this time, Louis also brought back Dr. Banner, who is a very talented researcher in physics, especially in the field of cosmic rays. The guy I brought back this time is very interested in armor. Tony, long time no see. Louis pulled Tony up from the ground and gave him a hug. Tony tried to punch Louis in the stomach with a backhand, but Louis blocked it. My fighting skills don't seem to be working, Tony said helplessly, but still hugged Louis enthusiastically. The modified arc reactor given by Louis has brought great help to Tony. The storage room, the relics left by Howard, also made Tony reacquainted with his father. However, this also made Tony feel that he and his father were very sorry for Louis, because Howard didn't mention Louis at all. Louis, an accidental product, may not even be known to Howard himself. Who is this? Tony couldn't help asking. Langdon really didn't look like a human being, much like a little dwarf in a fairy tale. Louis, have you seen Snow White? This friend of yours looks like a little dwarf in it. Tony complained. 3.9. He is indeed a dwarf, I brought it back from another place. Louis explained. FB. Well, it's a long story. Louis said with a smile on Tony's shoulder. Then we can talk slowly, you are not going to leave right away. Definitely no, not necessarily. It depends on the situation. I'm very busy. You know I'm hundreds of millions per second. Louis still can't think of anything that needs his own medical attention. It's poor, Louis, I suggest you go to a doctor and have a look at your kidneys. Tony looked at Louis with strange eyes. Louis? Wait a minute, Tony, stop for me, where did you learn these jokes? Louis froze for a moment, and immediately realized. Hey Tony, I didn't expect you to learn to drive with thick eyebrows and big eyes. Chapter 82 Hero Organization, for subscription. Sitting on the sofa in the living room. Banner and Ethan are currently studying the drawings left by Louis. It is a matching locomotive for the 555 series. To this end, Tony also bought a company specializing in the manufacture of locomotives. Tony opened his mouth incredulously, wide enough to hold an apple. It is really what Louis said, because it is unbelievable. You mean, you went to another world besides the Earth? There are gods and dwarfs living there. Tony felt that his brain couldn't accept it for a while. Science comes first. Well, the end of science is theology. To be precise, there are two. Asgard is a group of guys who claim to be gods, but they only control some kind of power. Wardheim is the place where Langdon lives, and there are all the same people as Langdon. Dwarf. However, because I had a fight with him and caused a little disaster, Langdon was expelled. Louis said helplessly. To be honest, I was a little ecstatic. If it wasn't for this, Langdon wouldn't follow him either. What about you? How does the new arc reactor feel? Louis asked. 05 is great, the palladium poisoning in my body has been eliminated. Undressing showed the blood vessels that had turned blue-gray after being invaded by the palladium element. It has now returned to its normal color. By the way, that Fury recently found me again, ready to let me join the Avengers. Tony and Louis talked about the recent events. What about you? Have you agreed? Louis asked. Definitely not, although being a hero is a very good option, but I am a hero myself, why should I join another organization? Tony said with a smile. Louis, should we also form a hero organization? I can call Roddy over, and I'll build him an armored war machine. Louis took one look at Tony to make sure he wasn't joking. Tony really had an idea of forming a hero organization. Think about it carefully, if Tony forms a hero organization, if he wants money, and people, the appeal of Stark Industries will definitely not be weak. It sounds like a lot of fun. But, Tony, what is your purpose in forming the hero organization? Louis asked. I want to take revenge on that organization called Hydra. Tony's eyes showed a trace of vengeful hatred. Well, Tony is Tony. This life is absolutely endless with Hydra. The news of Louis' return quickly reached Banner and Ethan's ears, and the two rushed back immediately after dealing with the matter at hand. Louis had no choice but to tell the others about Langton again. As one of Louis' subordinates, Louis' eyes will definitely not be limited to the Earth. Therefore, I will take these people to the universe in the future. It would be better to let them know this as soon as possible. Langton's personality didn't fit in with them, even a little more wooden than Banner's. The dwarfs only make friends with people they approve of, and people who can drink well. Langton said in a low voice. Louis looked around. Banner would probably transform when he drank, and none of the others could drink. As for defeating Langdon? Dream. The great Langton would only do what Mr. Louis did. And at the moment, Phil Coulson and others also returned to the Tricurved headquarters in Washington on Aegis and the exclusive plane. Director Nick Fury's face is ugly, and this situation has lasted for more than half a year. Continuing frustration over Tony's invitation, with New Mexico assignments thwarted. There is no good news in this period of time. Director, here is the mission report. Phil Coulson did his best and drove out the mission report on the plane. Basically they are all the truth, and there are a few parts that just lower the plot of myself and others. Fury looked sullenly, flipping through the mission report. Rizzi didn't speak. Only when Louis defeated the destroyer with a hammer that seemed to have fallen from the sky, and brought back an Asgard Protoss, Fury stayed for a while longer. The atmosphere in the entire office became unusually silent, and everyone could only hear the sound of Fury flipping through the pages. You offended the Protoss, and in the end you still have to exchange the star map for Louis to save you, and you have to wipe your ass with S.H.I.E.L.D. for the stupid things you did? If I didn't know your respective identities and backgrounds, I would have thought you were undercover agents sent by hostile organizations. Fury looked at it and suddenly laughed, a sneer, a self-deprecating one. As an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., he was actually being tricked around. Not as good as fighting power, not even as good as your brain? I take the main responsibility for this matter, and I am willing to accept punishment, even if it is an assignment. Phil Coulson knows that there is no way to wash away what he has done. I can only hope that by accepting punishment, I will not be so passive. Phil Coulson, we have been partners for so many years, and we know each other very well. There are some things that you don't need to help. Fury sighed. My old buddy is good at everything, and his personality is a bit too good. Let's go and see this Asgard god first. Since it's our fault, we can only hope that the other party doesn't care too much. Fury said coldly. Fury doesn't really want to be an enemy of an Asgard god. In fact, in the limited data records, the gods of Asgard belong to the kind of warlike, but still friendly gods. Although Asgard has fought in the 9 realms, they are also just to swear their own strength. It does not interfere too much with the operation of 537 degrees in other countries. Moreover, Asgard also helped Earth resist a Jotunheim attack. So, Fury still decided to have a good chat with the Prince of Asgard. A group of people came to the nursing room, and Thor was sent here, and someone was taking care of Thor's body. How? Fury asked the doctor who was examining Thor. The inside of the body is a bit bad, but the recovery ability is very strong, and it will be fine after a few days of rest. The doctor replied. People have come over, you can go in, but be careful to keep your voice down. Fury nodded, and walked in alone. Phil Coulson and others did not go in. Just worried that it would irritate Thor. Thor looked around in bewilderment, whites everywhere, completely different from Asgard's resplendent decoration. These running machines did not feel the fluctuations of divine power or magical power. An electric current power is used. Thor tried to use the thunder in his body to control the circuits in these machines. Zzz zzz. The electric current was directed to Thor. Bang bang bang. Because the voltage load was too high, the transformer exploded. All the circuits on this floor were short-circuited, and the room was instantly plunged into darkness. Chapter 83 The Heavenly Emperor suit arrives. Subscribe. Not to mention Thor, Fury was taken aback. Phil Coulson and others who were waiting at the door rushed in immediately. Get out! Fury took a deep breath and shouted. Phil Coulson and others could only withdraw cautiously. Even in the dark, Thor still saw the faces of Phil Coulson and others. So it's you, since you're here, stay here. Thor sneered. Subconsciously put Fury on the opposite side as well. Sorry, I apologize to you for the actions of Phil Coulson and others, but we were looking for a hammer that fell from the sky at the time, and they thought you took it. Fury explained the ins and outs to Thor. Mjolnir is my weapon, even if I take it away, what's the problem? This. Fury really didn't know what to say for a while. Why did he feel that the more he explained, the more chaotic he became? Where is my Mjolnir? Where did you hide it? Thor didn't want to talk to mortals like Fury. Now that he has regained his powers, he just wants to find Mjolnir quickly and return to Asgard. He didn't want to stay in this ghost place for another minute. Sorry, Mjolnir is not in our hands, Fury said. Mjolnir was broken in the battle with the metal monster. Impossible, Mjolnir is made of the hardest uru, and it will never break. Thor grabbed Fury's tie and said fiercely. It's hard for us, but it's true, Fury said. Who is it? I think you've seen this man before, and his name is Louis. Fury was smart enough to turn all of Thor's attention to Louis. Louis. A black armor with orange energy tubes appeared in Thor's mind. That guy, I'm just going to settle accounts with him. Thor is still brooding about being killed by Louis with one move. Where is this Louis you speak of? I'm going to settle accounts with him. Don't worry, I will call him over. After Fury transferred his hatred, he felt that this Asgard god had great potential to develop into a member of Avengers. It's just that it's not the time yet, and we still need to find an opportunity to win Thor over. Phil Coulson, go and prepare what Louis wants, and tell Louis that you can come and get his reward. Phil Coulson responded, and immediately began to prepare for the reward Louis needed. The roof of the Stark Industrial Building. Ethan and Tony were already drunk, and Banner looked at the two of them blowing on the bottle and felt that he couldn't participate at all. It's really easy to get into trouble when you drink. Banner moved Ethan and Tony to the living room, and went back to rest by himself. On the roof of the open-air building, Langton and Louis sat facing each other. Both of them were red-faced and their eyes were a little red. Mr. Louis, Red's wine is like water, tasteless, and the champagne and brandy you mentioned are also average, and they are still fresh in these earthen jars. Langton's tongue was so big that he drank it again and again. Take a big gulp. Louis glanced at the name on the pot Urquhart. He wondered if he had bought fake wine. But the aftertaste in my mouth, if it wasn't for Louis' constitution, I would have almost passed out. I just see that you are destined, Mr. Louis, you are better at fighting than me, and you are better at drinking than me. I, Langdon, admire you the most. I don't even admire King Dwarf. I'm just a little weaker. Otherwise, Stormhammer will definitely surpass Mjolnir. I must create a weapon that shocks the entire universe. Langton's voice became smaller and smaller, and gradually only huge amounts of grunting remained. Louis smiled wryly. This Langton, he must not be allowed to drink hard in the future. Mr. Louis, your call is from Mr. Phil Coulson. The voice of J.A.R.V.I.S sounded, and the long-lost J.A.R.V.I.S voice prompt made Louis a little unaccustomed. Come on. Louis shook his head, a little confused. He also wanted to hear why Phil Coulson called him. Mr. Louis. Phil Coulson's call came in quickly. Tell me, what is it? Is what I want ready? It's ready, so I have to trouble Mr. Louis to come and get it. Let me go and get it, or let me go. Mr. Louis, isn't it the same? Phil Coulson felt sweat dripping from his brow, and it was really hard to fool Louis. Louis sneered, his voice became evil, and he said softly, you know the difference, but since you want me to go there so much, then I will grant your wish. Snapped. Still drunk, Louis threw the phone down from the Stark Industrial Building. The body fell from the sky high. Siga, Henshin. Louis' voice was still intoxicated, but he completed the transformation in mid-air, and White's Pega armor covered Louis' body. The airflow from the flight bag allows Louis to fly in the sky. Obviously the space barrier can be used, but Louis just wanted to experience the feeling of flying in the sky today. Every time he heard Tony say how good it felt to be in the sky, Louis never had the chance to try it. Now it's finally time to try it out. Siga streaked across the sky like a white meteor and flew towards the headquarters of the Tricurved Wing building. After Fury came out from Thor, he had been thinking about how to question Louis. No, you can't use questioning, if it arouses Louis' resentment, but the time is not worth the loss. Louis' fighting power is too terrifying, Fury thinks it's better to be more careful. God, he may not be able to beat Louis. Boom boom boom. A series of voices came from outside. Come in. Fury yelled without thinking. Boom boom boom. Fairy finally realized that it wasn't knocking on the door, it was knocking on the window. Subconsciously, he turned sideways, rolled over, drew out a pistol, and pointed it skillfully at the window. A white armor was hovering outside the window, silently watching Fury while knocking feebly on the window. Boom boom boom. That's how the sound came out. Fury, I'm here, why don't you open the door? Louis asked in a daze when he was drunk. Fury finally recognized it was Louis' voice. But this is Nima's outrageous. This is the 27th floor. You don't want to be as simple as visiting. Fury felt a chill in his heart. How much armor did Louis show? Each set is extremely powerful and can deal with various battles. Fury, if you don't open the door, I'm going to break in. Louis hadn't realized he was outside the window yet. Chapter 84 The Fighting Instinct After Drinking, subscribe. Fury looked helplessly at Louis who was floating outside the window. This is a new set of armor that should be permanent for air combat. Fury is now more and more frightened by Louis' armor research and development ability. Open the window and let Louis in. Louis supported Fury's desk a little dazedly, and then accidentally snapped a corner off. My table, Fury screamed. This is a desk made of pure oak, which is very valuable and extremely hard. It was broken by Louis's casual touch. Such a force! Fury was both eager and worried. As long as this kind of power is not in his hands for a day, Fury will never feel at ease. Looking at the dazed Louis, Fury asked, Louis, are you drunk? Nonsense, I'm not drunk, what do I want? My reward. I'll have Phil Coulson deliver it now. Then I'll wait. Hearing Fury's words, Louis fell asleep on the sofa in Fury's office wearing the Siga armor. With the smell of alcohol that could be smelled through the armor, Louis was definitely drunk. This is an excellent opportunity to get the armor from Louis. But such a plan requires the help of other people, and also requires the presence of a strong person who can control the situation. Phil Coulson, who received the order, immediately went to office 823 with his belongings. along with General Ross, Thor, Hawkeye, and Black Widow. This is pretty much the entire main force of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Avengers. Thor considered being a part of the Avengers not too long ago. At first he refused, but there was no way, Fury gave too much. The left and right people who walked into the office was attracted by Pega, who was lying on the sofa and snoring at first sight. Seeing this familiar design style, everyone knows that this is definitely a new armor developed by Lewis. How to say? Seeing such a new pair of armor, no one knows what kind of power it will have. Louis's previous record was a bit too scary. Lewis, the promised reward has been brought, Fury said softly. After signaling to Phil Coulson behind him, Phil Coulson immediately took out a box, which contained the metal, synthesis formula, and star map that Lewis needed. Lewis glanced at it in a daze, took the box in his hand, and prepared to go back without even looking at it. Seeing that Lewis was about to leave, Black Widow followed immediately, putting a hand on Siga's shoulder. But Louis's reaction was sharp, and he grabbed Black Widow's neck with his backhand. Black Widow never thought that Lewis would still be so vigilant even when he was drunk. His neck was strangled and he couldn't breathe at all. "Let go, Lewis, let go, she's one of my own!" Fury shouted immediately. Both Thor and General Ross are ready to save lives. But he saw that Lewis brought Black Widow to his body, put his nose up and sniffed it. "The taste of black truffle steak," Lewis said lightly. If it wasn't for the smell of alcohol all over Lewis' body, such actions and postures would feel like molesting no matter what. Snapped. Lewis threw Black Widow on the ground, showing no signs of pity. With wobbly steps, it seems that he is still going to leave wherever he comes in. Everyone looked at each other, and it seemed that it was impossible to get Lewis to remove his armor through normal methods. "Would you like it?" General Ross gestured to his neck. Both Phil Coulson and Hawkeye shook their heads, but Thor nodded. He was also very dissatisfied with Lewis killing himself instantly, and now his injuries recovered quickly, and he had enough strength to fight against Lewis again. Before Fury could make a decision, Thor stopped in front of Lewis. "You took my Mjolnir?" Thor asked coldly. "So what if I took it? Who are you?" Lewis was still confused. He just wanted to fall asleep now, but it was obvious that the guy in front of him who had blurred into three shadows was not going to let Lewis leave. "I am the Crown Prince of Asgard." Thor was about to declare himself, but was interrupted by, "AFDC, Louis. Can you let me go, you are blocking my way," Lewis said politely. But he is polite to people, and Thor is not prepared to treat him like this. "Lewis, stop talking nonsense and hand over my Mjolnir, or let me fight until you hand it over." Thor is not going to talk nonsense with Louis. The power of thunder swept across and rushed towards Lewis. But Lewis was faster, almost passing through Thor's thunder, and came in front of Thor. Punch, hit. It seemed like a light punch, but it contained great power, and it directly sent Thor flying. Thor's body smashed through a wall, and he got up from the ground in embarrassment. The drunk Lewis was in a daze, and his attack was neither serious nor serious. Thor's attack stimulated Lewis' fighting nerves, and he began to be dominated by fighting. Warlike, Fen. Pega is fully activated, and blood energy is directly supplied to every inch of armor through the Puxi core on the chest. The turmoil of the battle forced Fury and others to hide in the corridor. "These two lunatics, can't they go out and fight if they want to fight?" Fury's face was ugly. With just this attack, Fury's office was basically destroyed. At the same time, many top-secret materials were also destroyed. Although there are backups, it takes a very troublesome procedure to reapply the backups. Thor's leather armor was also worn on his body, his eyes were full of thunder, and his body was also wrapped in thunder and rushed towards Lewis. The huge amounts of momentum almost carried Lewis out of the floor-to-ceiling windows. This is the 27th floor. Falling from here is almost certain to die. Thor is not afraid at all, this is what he planned long ago. Lewis's previous armor did not have flight ability, which made Thor subconsciously think that Lewis does not have flight ability now. Therefore, letting Lewis fall to his death by himself is definitely the best way. But Siga recovered after falling tens of meters, and the flight backpack ensured that Lewis could be suspended in the air. Thor's attack just now completely angered the drunk Lewis. After Pyga stabilized his body, Thor's pistol, which flew into the air, aimed at Thor and fired continuously. This forced Thor to retreat. But Lewis persisted, he entered a fighting state, and never thought of letting Thor go. The energy gathered on the feet, and Lewis came to the sky above Thor through the space barrier, like a rock spreading its wings. The downward flying kick aimed at Thor, and Pyga turned himself into a high-speed rotating crimson electric drill, and the flying kick knocked Thor down. Kicked Thor back into the tricurved wing building, smashing countless walls in a row. Chapter 85 Kick Fly Thor, subscribe. Siga was suspended in the air, looking at the huge hole Thor had made. The original tall three-curved wing building now has a large missing piece, which is very conspicuous. The entire Tricurve Wings headquarters was passively turned on the highest alert. This means that the Tricurve headquarters has been invaded. TCH, do you still want to continue fighting? Lewis said coldly. The cold wind outside entered through the armor's ventilation system, making Lewis a little more awake. But right now he just wants to sleep well. Damn Hundan, I must teach you a good lesson. Blue-purple's thunder turned into a spear and shot out from the pitch-black hole, its speed soaring to the limit, piercing the sound barrier. But such an attack, in Lewis' opinion, was still too slow. He deftly made a turning movement in the air, dodging the attack. Thor had already rushed out, and the thunder turned into a hammer, smashing towards Lewis. But what greeted him was a volley from Lewis. Kick Thor back into the tricurved wing building again. Bingo! The ball went in. Louis smiled with satisfaction. Then he rubbed his head, feeling a little dizzy, so rested. No longer talking to Thor and others, Siga disappeared into the night at an extremely fast speed. Lewis is going home to bed. Fury's heart was so cold, but everyone was grateful that they didn't do anything to Lewis before. The strength shown by Lewis's set price is really too strong. Thor was like a babbling child in front of him, and then he was kicked into the Uke building twice as a fixed ball. In the darkness, the blue-purple eyes gradually lost their luster. Thor got up awkwardly, he was kicked badly just now, but Lewis looked very casual. Ahem, this soul is weak. Thor cursed angrily. Such an attack force, even Asgard's Shendu seldom has such combat effectiveness. Thor felt like he was no match even in his prime, unless Mjolnir was able to give it a try in his hands. This man is too powerful. This is definitely not just the power of armor, this man can control such power originally. Thor thought of the destroyer, his father Odin could use the power of the destroyer to the limit. Lewis can also maximize the power of these armors. What Thor didn't think about was that he had already started to compare Lewis with Lee Job. The sirens of the tricurved wing building continued to sound, and batch after batch of defensive troops began to surround them. Fury looked helplessly at the destroyed tricurved wing building, feeling desolate in his heart. That's another big repair bill. The point is, I didn't get anything again. S.H.I.E.L.D is now heavily in debt, and relying on Congress's funds every year is simply not enough to support such a huge expenditure. This is why Fury wants Thor to join the Avengers, because Thor has money. Banknote ability, it is easy to put it anywhere. However, Fury now thinks about facing the long list of bills. Suddenly there is an urge to resign. Early morning, Stark Industrial Building. Banner has a good habit of going to bed early and getting up early every day, and plans to go to the gym to exercise. Then in the living room, Ethan and Tony were lying in a mess. These two people who drink poorly and are the most vicious, are now drunk and unconscious. Langton's beard and the coffee table were knotted together, and the red-skinned dwarf was snoring while holding a wine jug. Louison was sleeping quietly on the recliner, holding a metal suitcase in his arms at some point, and he didn't know what was in it. It wasn't until noon that the two drunks, Ethan and Tony, woke up slowly. The aftermath of drunkenness is that the whole afternoon of the two of them is also useless. Langton was full of alcohol and prepared to find some wine to continue working hard. How could there be no wine in the world of dwarf? He fell in love with the taste of Urquatu. Louis' constitution has already consumed all the alcohol in his body, and the reason why he is still asleep is that when he was drunk yesterday, flying back and forth was too exhausting. So Louis woke up still in a hazy state. Ethan, Tony, Banner? Which of you put this suitcase here? Louis now has no memory of what he did yesterday. This suitcase. What is it? I don't know, I saw you sleeping with it when I got up in the morning. Banner replied. Sleep with this thing in my arms? I must be sick. How uncomfortable it is to sleep. Louis rubbed his head, he really didn't have a 10-point memory of what happened yesterday. I just feel that I am very happy to fly in the sky. Also played football once in the sky. Thor, IDNMD. 0, ask for flowers. Louis racked his brains and couldn't remember what he had done yesterday. Drinking delays things, but it is right. J.A.R.V.I.S, call out yesterday's monitoring. Louis shouted. Okay, Mr. Louis. J.A.R.V.I.S replied, and then called out yesterday's satellite monitoring. Tony and others also came over to see what stupid things Louis did yesterday. Public execution surveillance video. When Louis transformed into Saga, he flew around New York for a long time, performing various tricks, and turning around in the air for 3.5 weeks. PSST. Ethan couldn't hold back. Banner simply covered his eyes. Tony, Louis, we are professionally trained, no matter how funny it is, we won't laugh unless we can't help it, ha 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 ha. Okay, you can laugh if you want to. Louis said angrily. He really didn't expect that he did such a thing yesterday, he was really ashamed. The point is, he is still being executed publicly. J.A.R.V.I.S, fast forward, fast forward, Louis roared. Okay, Mr. Louis. J.A.R.V.I.S started to fast forward at 3200x speed. Louis' behavior quickly went into a straight flight. This direction is Washington. Tony asked with some doubts. Louis seems to vaguely know why he went to Washington. In Washington, there is only one possibility for Louis to go, and that is the Tricurved Wing headquarters. Sure enough, the Tricurved Wing building soon appeared in sight. Then there is the picture of Louis using the window as the main entrance and kicking Thor away. When Louis kicked Thor flying, Langton showed a rare surprise. Thor is one of the most powerful young gods in Asgard, and Louis' fighting power is obviously surpassing Thor. Seeing the damage caused by the battle between Louis and Thor, everyone looked at Louis in unison. I said, I drank a drink yesterday, and I really don't know anything, do you believe it? Louis said helplessly. Louis, you are not allowed to drink at home from now on. Tony gave Louis a no-drinking order. Ethan and Banner nodded in unison, the destructive power displayed by Louis was too terrifying. God knows when he'll do that to Stark Industries. At that time, everyone will be finished. When Langton heard the prohibition, he was shocked for a moment, and silently mourned for Louis. Can't drink, but it's really too miserable. Chapter 86 Target, Vibranium, for subscription. Louis reluctantly accepted Tony's prohibition order. Fortunately, he was not Langton. If Langton was given a prohibition order, Langton might resign and leave that day. Louis took the box to the laboratory. The box was not very heavy, only about a dozen kilograms. After opening, there is a wrapped metal block inside. Sound-absorbing steel. Langton immediately leaned over. As a forging master, he has a very good understanding of various metal materials. Sound-absorbing steel is called vibranium on the Earth, but in the universe, it is considered a very rare metal material. Even compared to Asgard's URU, it's not bad at all. The most important point is that it can be added to other metals for mixing, incorporating its own hard characteristics into other metal materials. This is its biggest advantage. Langton caressed 717 and touched vibranium, just like touching his lover. If you just look at the eyes, you can even suspect that Langton saw the beauty of the dwarf tribe. Sure enough, it's vibranium. Although the quantity is a little less, it's no problem to integrate into a set of armor. Langton reluctantly put down vibranium. His eyes turned to other metals. In addition to vibranium, the deal between Lewis and Fury also involved adamantium and cabernet metal. This is adamantium. That big one is cabernet. Lewis gave an introduction to Langton. He didn't know much about metals, but as a master blacksmith, Langton's eyes lit up when he saw these alloys. It's a very hard synthesis metal. Its hardness is no worse than vibranium, but its toughness is a little bit worse. It can be used to make weapons, and it is most suitable for making weapons with the most lethal power. The only pity is that this metal has a poor affinity for magical energy, which is not as good as vibranium and URU. Langton knew the characteristics of adamantium after a little testing. These metals. Langton looked at the large piece of cabernet alloy. These metals should be imitations of adamantium, but they have been modified to have stronger ductility and toughness, and some special radiant energy. Thorn. Langton ran his fingers across the tip of the cabernet metal, and blood flowed out immediately. According to Langton's constitution, such wounds will heal quickly. But it seems that some kind of anti-healing factor is at work, and the healing of the wound is very slow. Excellent reduction of healing energy can destroy healing ability. Langton showed a satisfied smile, and the power in his body surged, and the power of the cabernet metal was quickly cleared, and the wound healed instantly. Mr. Lewis, these are very good metals. With these, I am confident to create the most powerful armor. Langton can't wait. He wanted to see the blueprint of the armor that Lewis was going to build. Not in a hurry, Langton, have you been to other places in the universe? Lewis asked. These metals, including the synthesis formula of the alloy, are not what Lewis cares about the most. What Lewis cares most about is getting the star map from S.H.I.E.L.D, which is an essential thing for navigating in the universe. Only with a star map can one not get lost in the vast universe. Lewis opened the memory of the star map, and the star field inside was not the star field of the Milky Way, but the star field where the Kree and the Skrulls lived. I went out once very early to find materials for making weapons. Langton nodded. Compared with the closure of the Earth, Wardheim still has a corresponding connection with the universe. Let's take a look at this star map. Lewis handed the star map in front of Langton. Lewis didn't know if this star map was correct, but Fury could definitely guess what he was going to do with this star map. Lewis's eyes are no longer limited to the Earth. Our goal is the Sea of Stars. Langton looked over, pondered for a moment, and said, to be honest, this is indeed a star map, but I don't know if the coordinates on it are correct. This should be the geographical star map between the two great empires in the universe. There is no map of the Milky Way leaving the Earth. Langton glanced at it with some pity. If it is a star map of the Milky Way, it will be available in Asgard. Asgard has a lot of foreign trade, and Warthium's weapons are traded by Asgard. From Langton's mouth, Lewis roughly knew something. It seems that I still think it is too simple. How can it be so simple to break out of the Milky Way? However, for the time being, these things are enough for Lewis to consume for a long time. Lewis handed over all three metals to Langton. Although Fury generously handed over the production plan of adamantium to himself, Lewis did not believe that Fury would be so kind. No matter what, this containment plan still needs to be tried by Langton. Vibranium is used as an auxiliary, and the amount of this thing is too small. It is generally used to add to other metals to increase the hardness of other metals. Adamantium synthesis plan actually needs vibranium. Langton almost didn't shout out. This consumption is too exaggerated. For every kilogram of adamantium, nearly 50 grams of vibranium are consumed. Louis' complexion became ugly, no wonder Fury was so kind. This kind of manufacturing is not profitable in the final analysis, it is really too rare for vibranium. 50 grams is $500,000. Where is this building adamantium? It's burning money. Mr. Lewis, we must get more vibranium for experiments. This metal is a necessity. Dunton made a very good suggestion. I know, I'll think about it. Lewis nodded. He knew that Wakanda had a rich source of vibranium, but that place also had a true 0.1 god's mansion. This is not a god like Thor. The origin of the goddess Black Panther is much earlier than Thor, and even the power of the goddess Black Panther is not much weaker than that of Odin. This is why Lewis has never attacked Wakanda. Where else has vibranium? Lewis asked with a headache. The vibranium that is currently circulating on the market is circulated in the black market, the quantity is scarce, and the price is expensive. Lewis frowned, a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind. How could he forget this, that man's shield was made of pure vibranium? This almost used up all the vibranium materials of S.H.I.E.L.D. back then, in order to create a shield for Captain America. In Lewis' view, this is really a waste. Anyway, S.H.I.E.L.D. is almost obsolete now, how good it is to recycle Captain America's shield for yourself. Chapter 87 Exploring the Arctic Circle, for subscription. What? You're going to the North Pole? The coffee in Tony's mouth almost didn't spit out. Because Lewis just told him that he was going to the North Pole. Are you crazy? Tony can't understand at all. After staying in New York, Lewis suddenly plans to travel to the North Pole? That's right, Lewis used the excuse of traveling. It's just that staying in New York is so boring that I'm planning to travel to the North Pole. I'm going to leave in the afternoon, so don't miss me too much during this time. Lewis said happily, with Banner standing behind him ready to accompany him. Ethan needs to develop the corresponding locomotive of the 555 series, and Langton is studying how to melt the metal of the destroyer, both of which are not small projects. Originally, Lewis wanted to keep Banner, but it was really a matter of luck to find Captain America in the Arctic Circle. Need me to help you contact the Arctic Expedition team? Tony asked. No, Banner and I will take care of ourselves. Lewis said with a smile. Oh, by the way, if someone calls me, just say I'm busy in the lab and don't answer the phone. 05 Lewis and Tony explained a few words, prepared a change of clothes, and the two of them were ready to set off in the afternoon. In fact, Lewis directly opened the ultra-long-distance space barrier through the power of the space gem. This is the first time Banner has seen an ability like Lewis's. Some looked at the space barrier curiously. How does this work? What kind of material is used to jump in space? Banner is very interested. The space power in the universe does not belong to some kind of material energy, Louis explained. I remember you said before that you came to the Arctic Circle because you were going to give up life. Yes, it's just that when I gave up my life, my body's defense limit was triggered. After transforming, I don't know what happened. Remember where the place is? How did you get into the Arctic Circle? Northern Alaska on foot, not here. Lewis nodded, opened the space barrier again, and came to a place that Banner remembered most clearly, which was an outpost for entering northern Alaska. The whole town didn't know if there were 20 families. Banner passed by here and walked into the Arctic Circle on foot. This comes from a small Easter egg that Lewis remembered from his previous life, Marvel. When Banner was about to give up his life in the Arctic Circle, he set out to defend himself to the extreme, changed his voice to become Hulk, and shattered the ice around him. The frozen Captain America was used as a background board in the egg. Louis just came here with the idea of giving it a try. He also carried a life detector and a metal detector. Pass the outpost in northern Alaska and continue to the Arctic Circle. The blizzard in the sky began to become denser. The air temperature here is very low, but Louis and Banner are only wearing a coat. The constitution of the two people has already surpassed that of the common people. Facing such weather, they are completely unmoved. With huge amounts of blizzard, Banner doesn't know where he is now. Louis used the power of space to prop up a space in the blizzard, and the two of them temporarily used it as a rest. Banner carefully recalled the original situation, and there was no multiple distances for him to enter the Arctic Circle. It was less than half a day, and he was on foot, so the location at that time was not far from here. Moreover, there are huge amounts of fractured ice not far away. Such characteristics made Louis use the power of space to start searching around for suitable places, and finally, "I found it, come with me." Louis found the place Banner said within the coverage of the power of space. "It's not far from here." The two of them carried the blizzard headlong forward, and finally came under a broken ice layer. This place has been severely damaged since Banner transformed into a Green Titan Hulk last time. Coupled with the blizzard in the sky, Louis can only use the power of space to search for Captain America bit by bit. Banner also uses life detectors and metal detectors to help Louis find them. He didn't know what Louis was looking for, and no matter what Louis was looking for, Banner was ready to risk his life to accompany the gentleman. Because Louis saved his life. Under the cover of snow and broken ice, Captain America Steve was sleeping peacefully. His bodily functions were reduced to a minimum, and his blood was flooded with glucose to provide the minimum continuation of life. Luigi transforms into Delta and uses the fire to start melting the thick ice. It didn't take long for Louis to see Captain America's period-inspired colorways. The clothes are very old-fashioned, and a little Banner looked at them, and finally complained, "It's a bit irritating." 1. Louis agrees very much this dress is a good reflection of one of the Marvel King treasures, Captain America's buttocks. However, these are not important. Louis fixed his gaze on the vibranium shield next to Captain America, which was Louis' purpose. "This thing weighs at least 12 pounds. Louis weighed it. Banner immediately understood that Louis' purpose was for this shield. "What about this man? He's still breathing." Banner felt that this person was dead, but although the vital signs from the life detector were weak, he was still alive. "Send it to a hospital in Alaska," Louis said casually. "Remember, we're just an expedition. Louis and Banner need a false identity. SHIELD. Fury looked at the few existing Avengers members and felt a headache. General Ross, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and a reluctant Thor. This combat power, no matter what, feels a bit insufficient. More importantly, there is not a single qualified leader. General Ross is too extreme. He uses the army to try to make other members obey his command. This is simply not feasible. Thor and General Ross have fought each other several times these days. 3 of the training grounds were destroyed. The combat power is enough, but neither of them is suitable for synthesis as a leader. True leaders should be just, peaceful, responsible, and wise. If Captain Marvel Carol came back, the captain of the Avengers, it would definitely be her. But the cost of Carol's return is too great, and Fury doesn't want to waste it. If only Captain America showed up again, Fury said to himself. At the beginning, Captain America Steve was the most perfect soldier launched as a symbol of the country, and all kinds of excellent qualities can be found in him. Fury grew up listening to stories about Captain America. Just now, he inadvertently thought of Captain America, but it was a pity that Captain America Steve died in the end. Director, we found someone with a very special identity." Phil Coulson stormed into the office. "Special status? Who is it?" Fury now has a headache seeing Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson never brought himself any good news. An expedition found a man in the Arctic Circle, suspected of being a World War II hero. Steve Rogers. Base. Fury jumped up from his position immediately. Chapter 88. Who moved my shield? Seeking subscription. Are you crazy? Fury looked at Phil Coulson. Suddenly I felt that this old man went crazy is an incredible thing. Steve Rogers, when was that character? You tell me, a hero from World War II has actually lived to this day. If Phil Coulson goes crazy, who should I find to replace Phil Coulson? Fury sighed. It was a very sad question. Do you have to put up with someone worse than Phil Coulson as your right-hand man? These are real, Fury. We have confirmed his identity, and his blood is exactly the same as the blood sample of that plan. Phil Coulson saw what Fury was thinking at a glance and interrupted Fury's brainstorming. According to the doctor, the body produces a large amount of glucose in the frozen state to maintain the basic activities of life. I know it's unbelievable, but don't forget that the Super Soldier Project created a hero. Phil Coulson mentioned that plan again. If anything, Steve should be the #1 hero. Existing not much later than SHIELD. Fury's expression finally moved. Does this count as God helping me? Just when Fury was thinking that the Avengers heroes needed a qualified leader, Steve appeared. His quality is definitely worthy of the captain's position. Even General Ross, when facing Steve, is a junior. Take me there, right now. Director Nick Fury couldn't wait to see the legendary hero, Steve. On the hospital bed, Steve, who had been sleeping for 10 years, finally woke up. When he saw the white walls and various medical machines around him, Steve felt as if he was in another world. Where am I? What time is it now? Is the war over? Steve's mind was immediately stuffed with various doubts about the size of the file. Just then, Fury and Phil Coulson walked in quickly. As if he had found someone to confide in, Steve asked, "Where is this place? Is the war over?" Fury froze for a moment before realizing that Steve's memory was still stuck in 70 years ago. "Yes, Steve, the war is over, we won." Fury didn't know where to start for a while. Seeing Captain America's expectant eyes, he finally answered the question. "That sounds great, be happy, we won. What time is it now? Do you know where Agent Carter is?" Steve breathed a sigh of relief, a smile on his face. What worries him most is that the war is still going on. Fury's expression became even weirder, and finally said helplessly, "Steve, it's 2011 now, and the war has been over for more than 70 years. Steve's expression hardened on his face. 70 years. Well, more than 70 years. April Fool's Day? How many months have I been asleep? It sounds ridiculous, but it's been over 70 years. In other words, you have been asleep for more than 70 years. But Steve wanted to say, his appearance still hasn't changed, and his physical condition is also at its peak. Why is he always super serum? Steve, you're already a super soldier, and 70 years in the freezer, your life is passing at an unusually slow pace, Fury explained. Although I know it, it is difficult for people to accept and understand. However, it is true. Steve doesn't look good, he doesn't believe he's passed 70 years, it's ridiculous. Fury knew there was no way to convince Steve with empty words. Welcome to the 21st century. Walking to the window, Fury opened the curtains. The sunlight outside was glaring, making Steve a little uncomfortable. But after getting used to it, it was deathly silence. Outside the house is the blue sky and white clouds, and there are tall buildings in the distance, various luxurious buildings, and wide streets full of traffic. Steve swears, this is definitely the first time he has seen such a sight. Here. Steve didn't know what to say. As you wish, Steve, thank you for your service to this country. Fury bowed deeply to Steve. In the records of S.H.I.E.L.D., Steve is described as an existence who sacrificed himself for the country. This is indeed the case, and Geng Rui thanked him from the bottom of his heart. I need to be alone, okay? Steve's voice lost its previous vitality, and seemed a little frustrated. Fury and Phil Coulson left, leaving Steve alone in the room of the ward. Is that the World War II hero Steve? Yes, that's Steve. Louis answered Banner's question. When Banner heard Louis' answer, he couldn't calm down for a long time. That's Steve, the Steve I grew up hearing, big hero. Even when Banner was a kid, Captain Steve was a favorite topic of grandfather's generation. However, if he lived to this day, he would be more than 100 years old. Banner was a little hard to understand. In his 90s, definitely this is just his natural age. Louis said, according to his physical age, he is still at his peak. The freezing made his body go into hibernation, and all life activities are just to ensure immortality. So, the metabolism is reduced to the extreme, and the body has not changed in these decades. Banner, your body should be able to do it too, Louis said half-jokingly. No, it doesn't make sense. Banner shook his head, the suggestion sounding sad. When I woke up decades later, I found that the world was turned upside down, and the people I cared about were gone. Is there any point in living like that? Banner couldn't even give himself a clear answer, so he put the grilled veal steak into his mouth and started chewing. Louis, who is Chien, agreed to go out for a trip, so naturally he won't go back when he finds his goal. Two people are enjoying delicious venison ribs in a small town in Alaska. Steve, who was transferred to the ward of Washington Hospital, was discharged after confirming that there was no problem with his body. Fury was waiting for him at the hospital gate. After learning that S.H.I.E.L.D. is an organization created by Carter Agent, Steve also became friendly to Fury and applied to join S.H.I.E.L.D. himself. Steve, your identity is not suitable for working in SHIELD. Your ability should be used to protect world peace, so I want to invite you to join Avengers. Fury said a little excitedly. Well, I need to think about it, Director Nick Fury. When you found me, did you see a shield beside me? It's just a small round shield. Steve feels a little uncomfortable now, and when he sees a manhole cover, he wants to grab it and block himself in front of him. Chapter 89 Asking, Buying, for subscription. Shield. Fury froze for a moment. Steve was probably talking about the iconic star shield. Saw it in an old brochure. We didn't find shield, you were found by an expedition and sent here. Perhaps during the long sleep, the shield fell to other places. Fury thinks a shield is not a big problem. Unfortunately, it was made of pure vibranium. Mr. Howard used almost all the metal. Steve nodded. Although he likes that shield very much, if he loses it, there is nothing he can do about it. Steve is not going to let S.H.I.E.L.D. waste a lot of manpower and material resources to help him find the shield because of his own reasons. Vibranium. Fury twitched. He really didn't want to hear this word now. The point is, Steve's vibranium shield, it's that big. How much does that cost? The shield looks like it weighs about 10 pounds, which is $45 million. Fury felt that he was wrong, and his mentality was instantly out of balance. That's $450 billion US. Fury wants to find someone to salvage this shield now. Is there anything more profitable to salvage the shield? But Fury knew that it was impossible for him to do this, because the price 943 was too great. Searching for a vibranium shield in the middle of nowhere? As long as the brain is not pumped, it will never do this kind of thing. Fury looked at Steve with a pity face, and said, I will have someone build you a shield as soon as possible as a spare. Then I'll trouble you. Steve nodded. Stark Industries. Louis, Langdon, and Tony are discussing building a workshop for Langdon. Isn't it okay to use the lab's smelting unit? Tony asked. When he saw that Lewis and Langton were discussing which active volcano to choose to build the workshop, he knew that Lewis was going to do something. If you want to smelt metals such as vibranium and ulu, the melting temperature in the laboratory is far from enough. If you increase the temperature, the energy consumed will be too large. Also, for vibranium and uru, it would be better to use natural temperature. Dwarf has an affinity for fire. Langton had tried the melting device in the laboratory a long time ago. Although the temperature can be adjusted at will, and there is a melting device with a higher temperature, Langton still shook his head after feeling it. These artificially increased temperatures can only create common, AFDC, weapons, but Langton's goal is not just common weapons. Okay, so what are your plans? Buying a volcano is a lot of money. If it's just an active volcanic island in the sea, it doesn't matter. Tony is also rich and powerful, and the islands in the sea are really not good for Tony. What's the matter? Stark Industries has many private manors on overseas islands. Asking is not bad money. As soon as Langton heard it, Tony was a rich man, and he politely selected his target on the map. Lewis, damn it. Tony, fuck. The voices of the two attracted Ethan and Banner, when they saw Langton's target selection. Ethan, fuck. Banner, fuck. Everyone fell silent, and Lewis tentatively asked, "Are you serious?" The other three waited in unison for Langton's answer. This is the largest active volcano, and I have seen its eruption phenomenon in the last few thousand years. This should be a rare volcano, and it can even drain extremely high-temperature lava from the center of the Earth. Langton looked at everyone and said seriously, "It's very suitable for making weapons. Metals such as uru are used to build weapons using the energy of a small planet. Earth's core magma can barely be used to make it." Louis took a hard look at Tony, and always felt like a black sheep. It turned out that Lewis was even more prodigal than him. This is an active volcano, and it is the most famous volcano in the United States. I bought it. Seeing Tony's expression, Lewis helped Tony make a decision without saying a word. Ask, just buy. Stark Industries, how could it be short of money? Joke. And at the moment, poor people Fury looked at the grant he had just applied for from Congress with distress, and used it to repair the tricurved wing building. Also built an adamantium shield for Steve. Although it is not as good as vibranium, the feel of Steve's hand is not bad. The defense is also very strong, which is enough. The meaning of shield is to protect. Steve joined the Avengers, which made Avengers usher in its own leader. General Ross also has no objection to this. To be honest, Steve has lived to this day, and his military rank is definitely higher than him. Fury thought he could breathe a sigh of relief. Let the next Avengers enter a stable development situation. However, when Fury knew that Stark Industries had purchased Yellowstone National Park, his eyes were full of desire for money. Without even thinking about it, he knew it was definitely Louis's idea. The money power of Stark Industries is just too scary. But why did Louis buy Yellowstone National Park? Fury knew that Louis definitely had a purpose, but what purpose? Fury was puzzled. Fury is like sending someone to find out the specific situation of Yellowstone National Park, but he is worried about angering Louis. Louis's combat power, the entire Avengers combined are now no match for him. Phil Coulson, what do you think Louis is up to? Fury asked. The location of Yellowstone National Park is marked on the map. I don't understand it, it doesn't feel like it makes any sense, unless Louis finds a treasure there and needs to do excavation work. Phil Coulson made his own conjecture. Louis asks us for all metals. You can imagine how rare Louis is for special metals. If there is a metal vein in Yellowstone National Park. Phil Coulson didn't go on, it was just his guess. Fury's eyes lit up, and he immediately took up the conversation. Then it makes perfect sense to buy a Yellowstone National Park. This is almost the most perfect explanation, and Fury feels that Phil Coulson's analysis of this wave is simply perfect. As for the guy who is believed to have bought Yellowstone National Park for a rare load, he is now suffering from extreme temperatures underground. Langton, have you arrived? The temperature here is not friendly at all. Lewis complained, even his constitution felt hot here. It's almost there, it's almost here. Langton stopped, feeling the temperature around him, and the metal used for testing began to show signs of melting. Chapter 90 National Space Administration, for subscription. The forging of the dwarf family requires high-temperature molten magma to provide heat. Rivers of lava flowing on the surface can be seen everywhere in Wertheim, and Langton's workshop is connected with a lava deep in the core of the Earth. Feeling the surrounding temperature, Langton was very satisfied. The temperature here is just right to remove most of the metal impurities. Vibranium can be crafted here, and URU is a bit difficult, but it is enough to craft weapons. Hearing Langton's words, Lewis suddenly said, "Where's the metal of the destroyer armor?" "There is no way." Langton shook his head. Under the high temperature here, the metal body of the destroyer did not change at all. This is a metal beyond URU, and even Langton doesn't know this metal. Asgard holds many secrets, none of which are open to the public. For example, in the creation of the destroyer, Asgard has never invited dwarf craftsmen to work together, even if the two worlds have been friends for generations. "Mr. Lewis, leave it to me," Langton said with a smile. He couldn't wait to get his hands on some rare metal. "Is there any way to smelt the metal of the destroyer's armor?" Lewis was a little unwilling. This kind of metal, which is first class in the whole universe, can only be seen, but cannot be transformed into strength, which is really uncomfortable. "What? Definitely yes, but it may be difficult for Mr. Lewis. The most suitable forging of Ulu metal is to borrow the core of the planet to forge. This unknown vault can also be forged in the same way. However, Mr. Lewis, I can use the core of the planet to build it, but with the current technology of the Earth, it will be very difficult to find the core of the planet." It's not that Langton looked down on Lewis, he just said a fact. In the whole of Asgard and Wertheim, only Odin and Dwarf King Ytri have the strength to do so. Lewis nodded and understood Langton's meaning. To put it bluntly, the technology is not good enough. Leaving the entire Yellowstone National Park to Langton, Lewis felt that he was a bit of a prodigal. After more than half a month of closure, Yellowstone National Park has reopened. Countless tourists have entered it, wanting to see what changes. But, nothing. Because what Lewis needs is never the superficial scenery, but the underground treasures of Yellowstone National Park. Fury has sent 7 teams of agents to explore the interior of Yellowstone National Park. But the news I got was all without any change. Where did this Louis go and what did he do? Fury had a gloomy face, and every geographical location in Yellowstone National Park was enlarged on the big screen. Could it be just for a treasure, treasures like Mjolnir and Tesseract? Phil Coulson also felt that Louis didn't seem like spending money to buy a lonely black sheep. Without something, there is no way to understand Louis's behavior. It's possible. Fury was also inclined to Phil Coulson's idea. Now that Yellowstone National Park is open again, it also shows that Lewis seems to have got that treasure. This made Fury very uncomfortable. Originally, both Tesseract and Mjolnir should be the wealth of S.H.I.E.L.D, but Lewis intervened. Tesseract is gone, and so is Mjolnir. And Steve's shield, 450 billion is gone. This Lewis is simply the disaster star of SHIELD. What is Louis doing now? Fury asked suddenly. It seems that I haven't paid attention to Lewis' whereabouts for a long time. As a dangerous person, every act of Lewis may cause great harm. Lewis seems to be cooperating with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration recently, and I don't know what he is going to do. Phil Coulson has mastered the recent situation of Lewis here. In fact, Lewis has no intention of hiding. National Space Administration? Seeing that our guess is correct, after getting the star map, Lewis' goal is placed in the universe. Fury immediately thought of Lewis' plan. The previous star map was definitely not a whim, but a long-planned plan. However, that star map only has that star field, and has nothing to do with the Milky Way. I don't know, maybe Lewis has other plans. Fury now wished that Lewis would rush out of the Earth and fly into the universe. I always feel that as long as it has something to do with Lewis, I can't get any benefits. Where is Thor? Is he going back to Asgard? I've already gone back. I heard that there is something about the throne. 0. Regardless of him, they are still Asgard's people after all. It is impossible to hope that they will have feelings for the Earth. I can only hope that they will not be hostile to the Earth. Fury is very clear that the minds of non-me races must be different. Although Thor looks like a human being, he is the god of Asgard, and his tone of voice reveals the pride of being an Asgard god. It is impossible to expect Thor to do his best for the Avengers. The reason why Thor agreed to join the Avengers is just a choice of compromise. After General Ross transformed, relying on his powerful recovery ability, he was able to fight back and forth with Thor. Rui feels that the prototype of the Avengers has already been formed. If Tony and Louis, who failed to invite, are not considered, the Avengers' vision is almost the same as Fury's original idea. But why do you feel like things are going wrong? Compared to Fury, who had a headache, Lewis was taking Banner to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Research and Development Center. There is also Stark Industries investment and shares here, so facing Lewis, it can be said that facing a fortune. The treatment is the most advanced. Mr. Lewis, if you want to build a spaceship that travels in the universe, Stark Industries technology is no worse than here. Banner said in a low voice. After joining Stark Industries, Banner realized how much the outside world misunderstood Stark Industries. Everyone only knows that Stark Industries manufactures arms and develops weapons, but no one knows that Stark Industries is a research and development company of other high-end technologies. This includes aerospace technology, and Stark Industries has always been at the forefront. My purpose is not to manufacture spaceships, I want to manufacture armor that can fight in the universe. The enemies we will face in the future are not only on the Earth. Lewis explained softly. Spacecraft? Does it have anything to do with my armor? Banner's eyes widened, he didn't expect that Lewis' purpose was actually for this. But Banner never imagined that Lewis would actually create a battle armor in the universe on a whim. What Banner didn't know was that Lewis had been feeling some strange aura through space power for a long time when he walked into the NASA. Chapter 91 Car, Pegasus Motor, for subscription. A group of NASA officials had been waiting for Louis' arrival. Lewis did not hide his whereabouts, but the preparations of this group of people still made Lewis feel that he was being monitored. As long as you don't move through the space barrier, your every move will be discovered. Mr. Lewis, this way please. The leader is the director of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Tris. But in the face of Tris' hospitality, Lewis did not respond at all. He followed the sensed special power and walked. With 7 turns and 8 turns, he came to a pile of exhibits. Tris had an ugly expression, but he still followed behind Lewis. After seeing Lewis stop in front of a pile of exhibits, Tris said, "These are the things our astronauts brought back from outer space, and they are all some dirt and stones. There are also some rocks found in the 097 crater." Lewis didn't listen to what Tris was talking about at all. In Lewis' eyes, at this moment, with the help of the space gem, these substances in outer space became a lot of free energy. It is similar to a certain kind of special substance, but it is difficult for the Earth's technology to detect them. These are the free cosmic energies. Tesseract conveys its own consciousness. Hey! Lewis froze for a moment. He always thought that Space Gem and Tesseract were originally one, and it was always Space Gem that expressed intimacy. As a result, it is actually the consciousness transmitted by Tesseract now. Cosmic energy? Tesseract? Louis seems to understand something. All the time he has been using the energy that belongs to Tesseract. The space gem just provides space spanning. These two have always been two separate entities, but the space gem resides in Tesseract. Louis released his consciousness and asked, "Can these cosmic forces be absorbed and utilized?" Tesseract, "No problem, I absorb and utilize these cosmic forces all the time." Louis was overjoyed, and thought to himself that he had lost his head. Unexpectedly, the real treasure was always by his side, but he didn't realize it at all. Louis raised his head and showed a long-lost smile. Triss still felt that what he said just now made Louis very happy. Although he didn't know what was funny just now, he also laughed along with him. A group of hypocritical people showed the brightest smiles in their lives. But their goals don't seem to be self-aware. "Bruce, we should go back," Louis said to Banner. "He has found what he needs and can leave now." Originally, Louis came to NASA to see if there was anything related to cosmic energy. Louis plans to use this to create the latest armor. But he didn't expect that the cosmic demon would only have a conversation with Louis, so he directly cut back on this step. In this way, this space agency seems to be useless. "Okay, Mr. Louis." Banner's voice came through the voice changer. As long as he accompanied Louis to go out, Banner would disguise himself to prevent being discovered, and even Louis called Banner Bruce. Mr. Louis, look, this is the research funding, isn't it?" Starry saw that Louis was about to leave, and rushed up to ask. I don't know why Louis went crazy, came here to see the dirt in outer space, and then left? Are all rich people this idle? Starry is ready to take a large amount of research funding from Louis. Research funding? Does it have anything to do with me? Louis asked suspiciously, tilting his head. As long as we have research funding, we can develop a spaceship. In the future, Mr. Louis will have no problem even if he wants to travel to outer space. Starry is setting Louis. In his eyes, Louis is just a playboy, or an ignorant playboy. As long as Louis is made happy, the research funds will not come in large sums. Triss didn't expect Louis to give him a contemptuous look, and said contemptuously, "Spaceships, this kind of thing, Stark Industries can make it by itself, and I still need you. Come on, Bruce, before decade, I still have a Force plan." There was also a hint of excitement in Banner's eyes. This should be his first new armor series after following Louis. For example, the armor plan that became the 555 series by Louis was basically completed by Ethan. Banner had long wanted to have an armor plan of his own. Louis and Banner walked away, leaving everyone at NASA staring at each other. The smile on his face froze. This Louis really doesn't know what's good and what's wrong, he just blinded Lao Zi's smile for nothing. A group of people cursed and cursed, but there was nothing they could do. Back to New York, Stark Industries. Ethan has completed Faiz's matching locomotive SB555V- Mobile Pegasus. The first time Louis saw Tianma, he felt Faiz's eagerness to move. The two were originally matched. Even the combat system uses the same set of sequence commands. "Mr. Louis, it's a good luck." Ethan saw Louis and Banner come back, displaying the mobile Pegasus like a treasure. In order to meet Louis' request, Ethan almost racked his brains during this period, and even brought a lot of complaints from the locomotive manufacturer. "Let's test it out." Ethan wanted to see what the battle between Faiz and the Pegasus would look like. Click! The door of the laboratory was opened. Tony came in with a cup of coffee, saw Louis and Banner, and said hello. "Hey, Louis is back. NASA just called Pepper to complain about your disrespect," Tony said with a smile. Tony only has one word for the group of old people who have taken the funds to do nothing, and the 1.5 is scroll. Although I don't know Louis' plan, but you want to say that Louis doesn't respect people? That's the truth, what a fart you complain. He didn't even respect himself as a big brother, so he expects Louis to respect you? Hearing Tony say that people from the space agency complained about him, Louis smiled indifferently, let them go. Why? But, Tony, shouldn't you be finishing your mark collection right now? Louis looked at Tony, then at Ethan, could it be? Ethan said with some embarrassment, I refer to Mr. Tony's opinion. Try it and see what your brother and I suggest. Tony also admired his masterpiece. Pegasus also has part of Tony's ideas. When he knew that Louis was going to build a mobile Pegasus, Tony wanted to understand Louis' plan. Chapter 92 Tianma Locomotive, for subscription. Prior to this, Tony had always wondered why Louis didn't equip the armor with an air combat mode. But when he saw the Pegasus, Tony figured out what Louis was up to. Louis does not want to put his limited combat ability on air mobility, and the space equipped with air mobility ability can be used to increase the armor's combat ability. As for air combat, Pega, the Emperor of Heaven in the 555 plan, can deal with air combat very well. Louis can also use the ride to increase the mobility of the armor. The most outstanding is the double form of Pegasus. Louis has completely turned the car into a combat assistant. Aren't you going to try? Tony said. He really wanted to see Louis' idea become a reality. As you wish. Louis smiled. He is also very grateful to Tony for still helping out during the production of his Mark series. It is very difficult for Ethan alone to handle Pegasus Mobile in a short period of time. Fuzzy's Henshin. Louis took out the transforming device and transformed into Fuzz. Woo woo woo. Beep beep. The Pegasus seemed to sense the connection between Fuzz and itself, and it started on its own. 05 made the roar of the locomotive, and cheered for Fuzz with its horn. Fuzz and Tianma's systems quickly completed the link, and as long as they were within the signal receiving range, Tianma would rush to Fuzz's side. Louis soon felt that he could control Pegasus at any time through Fuzz. Robot mode. Louis gave the command. The Pegasus, which was originally a locomotive, is changing every inch of its skeleton. Clang! The sound of metal friction sounded, and the form of Tianma changed huge amounts from the locomotive state. After a while, a tall robot appeared in front of him. Both Tony and Ethan had seen the robot form before, but when they saw this form appear again and stood beside Fuzz, they still felt the power of the combination of the two. When Banner saw the robot-shaped Pegasus, he couldn't bear it and wanted to take a photo with him. No man can resist the charm of a robot. Beep. Tenma issued a warning whistle, signaling Banner to stay away from him. Banner watched Tianma make a defensive posture, and looked at Louis helplessly. Okay, there's only one photo. Louis said helplessly, disarming Tianma's defense. Tenma put away his Gatling gun and stood there, looking mighty, taller than Banner by a head. Banner took a photo with Tianma contentedly. Tony suddenly asked, would you like to have a practical installation test? If you only look at the current state, there is no problem with the mobile Pegasus. But when encountering a battle, I don't know what the situation will be. Louis also nodded. Although it looks pretty good, it still has to pass the test of battle after all. How about I come to practice with the mobile Pegasus? It just so happens that my Mark 6 also needs to be tested. Tony clapped his hands, and a painted armor rose from the mechanical bay. The inverted triangle reactor core can be seen to represent the offensive desire it represents. It seems that Tony's pursuit of strength is still on the agenda. Especially after a bout of powerlessness. Isn't it too much, Tony, you want to bully my motorcycle? Louis didn't expect Tony to be so depraved that he wanted to fight with a motorcycle. It's just for testing. If you really want to fight, your Tianma locomotive can't be the opponent of Mark 6. It has too few weapons. Tony participated in the research and development of Tianma. It is clear how strong Chu Tianma is. In contrast, Mark 6 is simply an armor made for offense, and it also includes many other functions. Then give it a try. If you lose, Tony, don't cry. You won't even be able to beat one of my motorcycles." Louis laughed. Tianma's statistics are not reflected in its offensive ability. Tony, who focuses on the Pegasus arsenal, will obviously suffer a lot. Louis came to the wilderness through the space barrier. This was the first time Tony saw Louis' ability. Louis' explanation for this is the special ability obtained from Tesseract. This made Tony feel very sorry, and he felt even more resentment towards Hydra in his heart. If Tesseract was still there, he might also be able to get some kind of ability. The Tianma robot is ready to go, and has turned the Mark 6 into an enemy. The moment Louis announced the start of the test, Mark 6 and Tianma took off at the same time, both wanting to seize the initiative in the sky. The Gatling machine gun constantly swept towards the Mark 6. Jingle! There were many fine craters on Mark 6, but after the previous lessons, Tony strengthened the defense ability of Mark 6. Gatling's attack did not have much impact on the Mark 6's outer armor. However, it slowed down the speed of Mark 6, Tianmara opened up the height, and continued to condescend to suppress Mark 6. Tony sneered, the recoil fire suddenly opened up, his speed increased a lot, and he dodged Tianma's attack. The two beam cannons on the palm of the hand accurately hit the Pegasus in the sky. As a locomotive, Pegasus has top-notch maneuverability, but when fighting as a robot, Pegasus's speed will be weakened a lot. Only suitable as an auxiliary combat. The beam cannon bombarded Tianma's body, making an explosion sound. Boom! The sound roared. But the sound of the Gatling gun did not abate at all. Tony's cheeks twitched a bit. Louis was going too far. He never thought that Tianma's defensive power would be so terrifying. Unharmed. Ethan never expected to see such a situation. 017 According to his thinking, Tianma is definitely not as good as Mark 6, so being able to entangle with Mark 6 for a while is enough. But Tianma's defensive power really surprised Ethan. This defensive power, could it be? Ethan suddenly thought of a bag of metal powder that Louis gave him. It's vibranium. Just adding a little bit can greatly improve the defense of other alloys. The one I gave you has at least 100 grams. Louis laughed. After he got the vibranium shield, he didn't take the 200 grams of vibranium powder seriously. Simply give it to Ethan to build Tianma. However, Louis did not expect that the defense power enhanced by vibranium would be so terrifying. Tony didn't believe in evil anymore, and the small rockets and beam cannons aimed at Tianma and came one after another, but Tianma only had some damage on its body. But the problem is that Tony's firepower reserves have been depleted. The rest are weapons that must kill, and cannot be easily used. Tony landed slowly, with a cold face, obviously not in a good mood. It's really annoying that I even marked one of Louis' motorcycles like this. Seeing Tony's appearance, Louis wanted to ridicule a few words, but suddenly a huge amount of glowing clouds appeared in the sky. The stars are flickering in the sky. Such a strange scene made everyone stunned for a moment. Louis sighed softly, he already knew what happened. Chapter 93 The Broken Bifrost, subscribe. The clouds in the sky have turned into psychedelic colors. Just like the aurora in the North Pole, it looks like all the colors of the sky and the earth appear in it. This should be the color produced by particle waves caused by cosmic ray impacts. Banner's research on rays is more in-depth. Seeing such a psychedelic scene also made his own guess. It is possible that the sun's flare activity ejected a large amount of particle energy. Ethan said his point of view. It doesn't matter anymore, I should watch this scene with Pepper. Louis, I need to go back right now. Tony, this guy, doesn't want to chat about physics with two people who are not interesting. All he wanted now was a quick date with Pepper. Under such a beautiful scenery. How about the Century Hotel? It should be a good place to watch such a scene. Tony asked immediately. Louis looked helplessly at Tony, who was keen on picking up girls, and opened the space barrier. The less you know, the less trouble you have. This is really a happy thing. Thinking of this, Lewis changed his smile and said, "I think it will be more interesting if you invite Pepper to the Stark Industrial Building for dinner." Tony thought for a moment, then said, "Louis, you're right. So, please clean up your house and don't make it look like a warehouse." Lewis shrugged his shoulders. It was definitely not his fault. Ethan and Banner had indulged themselves a bit during this time, putting many mechanical tools wherever they went. Everyone returned to the Stark building in a blink of an eye, and Tony couldn't wait to call Pepper and invite Pepper to be a guest. No one knows how long this aurora phenomenon will last, so hurrying up to date is the business. Reluctantly hanging up the phone with Pepper, Tony began to fantasize about today's date with satisfaction. The living room facade, where only Ethan and Banner are cleaning. Where is Lewis? Every time I can't find him. As soon as Tony came out, he looked for Lewis, and wanted Lewis to give him advice. Compared with Louis, who is focused on the fun of love, Tony's playboy is a bit of a misnomer. How to please girls depends on Lewis. As a result, Lewis actually sneaked away again. "Mr. Tony," Mr. Louis said he was going to Yellowstone National Park. J.A.R.V.I.'s voice sounded. "I know, Langton is there, but what is Lewis doing there?" Tony was a little puzzled. Lewis bought Yellowstone National Park. Tony and others all know the reason. However, forging is very different from industrial manufacturing. Lewis went to Langton probably for other things. Tony thought about it for a while and didn't bother to think about it. He should be struggling with how to date Pepper by now. "Ethan, Banner, do you know how to date a girl?" Tony asked. "Ethan, Mr. Tony, are you talking to me?" "Banner, isn't it enough to have a meal together?" "Tony, when I didn't ask, you guys keep cleaning." Lewis, who appeared in Yellowstone National Park, came to the ancient lava-covered land. It has been silent for thousands of years, a large amount of vegetation grows here, and the lake contains rare minerals erupted from the ground. And on the stone somewhere here, there are ancient magic runes that are difficult to read. Langton carved the magic rune here, and Lewis could come to Langton's underground workshop through the magic rune here. Lewis also tried whether he could use the power of space to reach it directly, but the power of space would trigger the warning left by Langton, causing spatial turbulence. This also let Lewis know that the space jump is still very dangerous when it is targeted. Red Skull was swept to another place in the universe by space turbulence. Lewis felt the movement around him, and quickly touched the rune here. A space vortex appeared on top of the stone, and Lewis jumped in, his whole body submerged in it. Not long after Lewis disappeared, several agent teams appeared here. "Hurry up, it's here, where is the person?" "I don't know, did you lose track?" "Damn it, this Lewis is too good at hiding." These people are the agent school team of S.H.I.E.L.D, specially used to keep an eye on Yellowstone National Park. The moment Lewis appeared in Yellowstone National Park, he was immediately targeted, and his follower, Lewis, came here. But following here, there was no trace of Lewis immediately. The runes on the stone began to disappear after Lewis entered it. Disappeared without a trace. Lewis already knew that someone would follow him, so he asked Langton to make the text mobile. In Red's workshop, Lewis suddenly appeared. The space here is illuminated by the light of the lava, and the temperature is still acceptable. This is not a workshop, but a place where Langton rests. Sensing the presence of Lewis, Langton put down the metal he was forging, and rushed back immediately. "Mr. Lewis, what's the matter?" Langton asked. Without a special period, Lewis would never come here. "Langton, do you feel it?" Lewis pointed to the direction of the sky, and said, "Asgard's Bifrost has collapsed." Langton's face changed slightly. He had been underground all this time and hadn't felt any changes from the outside world. Lewis and Langton appeared on the surface, and the gorgeous scenery in the sky is not over yet. That is the scene of the collapse of Asgard Bifrost, all particle collisions, and all physics theories are false. That's it, the bridge is down. It's a pity, this is one of the most powerful weapons in Asgard. Langton's eyes were full of pity. Arms. Louis always thought it was just a teleportation tool, but he never thought that it was also, by Zhao, a weapon. Well, an energy weapon for long-distance strikes, usually used for teleportation. I just don't know what happened to Asgard, even Bifrost is broken. Langton has already left Wordheim, and he doesn't know much about Asgard. But the break of Bifrost basically marks that there is a big problem inside Asgard. Louis knew that this might be the world forcing the plot forward again, and Thor regained his divine power and crushed Bifrost. What about Loki? Will it be the same as in the original drama, wandering in the universe, relying on its own tricks to get the scepter to return to the Earth? Louis suddenly felt that this was an excellent opportunity for him to rush out of the Earth. Whether it is the Chitauri army or Loki, they all came to the Earth through the universe. They must have a star map of the Milky Way, and they can come to the vast cosmic space. Chapter 94 The Force Plan, for subscription. Looking at the scene in the sky, Louis seemed to be able to see the tragedy when Bifrost collapsed. Langton, it seems that we have to speed up. Louis said in a deep voice. Speed up. For a moment, Langton didn't understand what Louis meant by speeding up. In short, leave the matter of the core of the planet to me, and put other things first. This blueprint is the armor I am going to build. You should familiarize yourself with it during this time. Louis will be hidden by himself from the beginning. Drawings were taken out. The upper armor is covered with sharp thorns, which looks very aggressive. Langton glanced at Louis, but he didn't expect Louis to have such a wild personality. This armor looks no less than the Destroyer. Every pattern is full of unique beauty. Langton knew at the first sight that the power of this suit of armor was intoxicating. Leave it to me, as long as I have the core of the planet, I can complete this set of armor. As a master blacksmith, Langton's greatest wish is to create the most powerful weapons. Now with the Destroyer gems in front, Langton even felt that the armor plan given by Louis surpassed the Destroyer. That was the armor that Odin gathered together to build Asgard's command. Louis just drew the armor, which actually made people feel that he could surpass the Destroyer. Langton felt that he must be crazy to have such an inexplicable confidence. Full of self-confidence that he didn't know where he came from, Yan Dun returned to the forging workshop below. Louis passed through the space barrier and returned to Stark Industries. Sensing that Tony is dating Pepper, Louis quietly returns to the lab. Welcome back, Mr. Louis. The sudden appearance of J.A.R.V.I.S. almost startled Louis. In the lab, Ethan and Banner were actually there too. Why are you all in the laboratory? Louis looked at the two people in a daze. It was originally the main console where the design drawings were placed, but now it was monitoring the roof of the Stark building. Who are you? Louis understood the attention of these guys a little bit. This is helping Tony date Pepper. The countdown on the main console must be passing drop by drop, when the countdown reaches 0. Around the Stark building, countless fireworks were launched into the sky, which brilliantly complemented the strange scene in the sky. Is this a date from a guy in tech? Louis thinks that fresh flowers, red wine, and chocolates are more realistic. As soon as Louis heard the sound of the explosion, he knew that this group of people definitely changed the gunpowder to firework, and the color was just a special burning substance added. Such a weapon of mass destruction was released as firework? The Ministry of Defense and Security was definitely going to send Stark Industries a bunch of complaints the next day. I wonder if Pepper will despair when he sees those complaints tomorrow? Boom boom boom. Louis banged on the table and pulled two straight physics guys out of their fantasy battle of love. Ahem. Louis coughed a few times. Mr. Louis, what's the matter? Ethan asked immediately. He knew that Louis would never come to him and others for unimportant matters. Banner also listened carefully to what Louis was about to say. Ethan, continue to speed up the research and development of the 555 series cars. With Tianma, the subsequent car development will be very fast, you just need to speed up. Banner, we're going to start a new armor series, I'll call it Project Force. This is the armor that Louis specially built. I didn't want to build Force so quickly, but whether it's the battle in the universe or the follow-up search for the core of the planet, Force's help is needed. Moreover, Force uses cosmic energy, and with the existence of Tesseract, the development progress of this armor will be very fast. Force plan? Mr. Lewis, I will definitely complete the research and development. Banner is very excited, this is the first time he is in charge of an armor series. It's not just you, Ethan will also join in after completing the research and development of the car. I hope to develop Force as soon as possible. Louis' request is not only to develop it, but also as fast as possible, Afba. I see, I will speed up. Ethan nodded and asked, is something wrong? The purpose expressed by Louis is very clear and urgent. There is something, so it's safe to be prepared. Louis explained. Developing Force in advance is also a forced choice. Because Force's data has to be considered in space combat, many parameters cannot be limited, which leads to the relatively low data parameters of Force. Any other questions? Louis asked. Both Ethan and Banner shook their heads, and the two were also competing with each other, both wanting to bring out their abilities. Seeing that Ethan and Banner were fine, Louis nodded, cancelled the main console screen, and switched it to a free module state. Louis began to build the shape of Force on it, referring to the style of the spacesuit, the oversized body, and the shape of the head of the spaceship. It looks weird, like a spaceship becoming a spirit. Banner and Ethan are also drawn to the mod Louis is building. This is indeed another series completely different from the 555 series. This set of armor looks very cosmic. Although it doesn't meet the public's aesthetics, depending on the situation, Louis probably didn't intend to regard it as the main force. Is this the armor I want to develop? There was no trace of disgust in Banner's eyes. Louis used a spaceship as a basis, which was originally very attractive to physicists like Banner who study cosmic rays. In fact, after looking at it for a long time, I still think it is a bit cute. Louis didn't know that Banner liked Force the first time he saw it. Maybe this is the right thing to do. At least, when facing Force, Banner can show 200% enthusiasm unfinished. It's not enough to rely on you alone. I have to call the people from the Stark Industrial Aerospace Research and Development Department to help. Louis didn't think that he could complete the research and development of Force only by himself and others. The creation of Force definitely needs professional talents to provide opinions. Although this is a set of armor, it is also a spacesuit that can move freely in the universe. Louis's current constitution, in the universe, can move freely for no more than 12 hours. And with the existence of armor, it can also be used to resist some rays in the universe, and it can be used to deal with various situations. Louis wrote a proposal called Force Plan overnight, and handed it over to Tony's bedside table the next day. What's this? Tony looked at the extra files on the bedside table and read aloud. Project Force. Chapter 95. Tell your people to go away, please subscribe. This was the first time Tony had heard the term Project Force. The next applicants are Louis and Banner. What are these two guys up to? Tony frowned, opened the file, and saw a lot of things related to the space agency. Looks like before, Louis went to NASA, and not just for fun. In the plan, Louis applied for almost 80% of the space-related researchers. He wanted to recruit all these talents from Stark Industries to help. New armor? Want to fight in space? Tony muttered. Louis's idea is very strange, but there is almost no possibility of fighting in the sky. Tony never considered the possibility of space combat for the Mark series. But seeing Louis' thoughts, Tony suddenly felt very interesting. Maybe he should also learn from Louis and develop a set of armor for fighting in space. There are quite a few factors to take into account such as power, blocking cosmic rays, and so on. It is no wonder that Lewis applied for so many scientific researchers. Approved. Tony Byte signed his name. The contract takes effect. As a small department of Stark Industries, it specializes in the research of space navigation items, and has an exclusive wind tunnel and vacuum simulation chamber. The professional equipment is not weaker than the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Many aerospace-grade equipment are developed here and sold to NASA. In order to connect the laboratory and the aerospace department, Lewis deliberately revealed the space transmission device in advance. The special portal built by Langton established a passage. Project Force officially begins. A word from Lewis announced the beginning of the whole plan. The most basic structure of the armor is still completed in the laboratory. Lewis uses aviation-grade metal materials, and at the same time mixed with vibranium technology powder. The special metal material is really too rare, and Lewis needs to save some money. Force is different from other armors. The main combat location of the Force series is in space, so there are a lot of things to consider. This still caused a lot of trouble for Banner in the early stage. As for S.H.I.E.L.D., after Fury knew that Lewis was found in Yellowstone National Park, he sent the Emperor's manpower there. He really wanted to know what Lewis was doing. Louis is nominally still a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he does not go to work or accept assignments, and Fury is also very distressed. He didn't kick Lewis out of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he still hoped that one day, he could get some help from Lewis through this relationship. Although Fury also knew that such a relationship was too fake. Lewis can cut off this connection at any time. There was a new discovery in Langton, and Lewis received the news from Langton. In the next moment, Lewis passed the space barrier directly to Yellowstone National Park. Then it was discovered by the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent squatting in Yellowstone National Park. It's no wonder why Lewis teleported to different locations. In fact, the magic circle enchanted by Langton will move at any time. Even Duman needs to be in Yellowstone National Park to find that location. The agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. immediately launched a tracking operation. Follow up, this time we must not let him run away. Attention everyone, find Lewis Stark. Be careful, don't let him find out. This professional agent team is launching a follow-up on Lewis. It's just that, within the scope of Lewis's space, the traces of these people can be seen at a glance. Lewis even felt that there was an agent standing behind him disguised as a lady who was reading a travel guide. "Sir, may I ask?" The lady put her hand on Lewis' shoulder, and just as she was about to speak, she felt Lewis' hand on her own. "Miss, I think we have met." Lewis turned around, looking at the woman in front of him with charming eyes. "Really? Maybe it's on a certain bus." She took off her sunglasses, said with her red lips closed. It wasn't any woman Lewis had ever met, not even counting the one-night girls. Lewis lifted a strand of the woman's hair without hesitation, and said playfully, "Although they don't look the same, they taste the same. Maybe it's the same shampoo, I like to use a day." "Really? When can S.H.I.E.L.D. agents go out to perform missions and use scented shampoo?" Lewis laughed. "0, asking for flowers." The woman's complexion changed, she didn't want to understand how she was discovered at all. Putting on her sunglasses again, she was about to leave. If she was exposed, she would not be able to perform the task. "Don't go." Lewis grabbed her wrist. The woman tugged a few times, but it didn't budge. She looked at Lewis with some annoyance, as if she took out a pistol and aimed at Lewis's head and shot. "Natasha Romanoff, between the two of us, we don't have to break up like this as soon as we meet." Lewis chuckled. Black Widow doesn't know what to say anymore? When I faced Lewis this time, I was completely defeated. Seeing Black Widow's confused face, Lewis put his arms around Black Widow's waist and removed a small firearm from her waist. "A dangerous weapon, not suitable for a woman like you." Lewis casually threw the weapon into the trash can, and wanted to check whether there were other weapons on Black Widow's body. But being slapped off by Black Widow, the bastard Lewis definitely did it on purpose, wanting to take the opportunity to grope. "How did you find me?" Black Widow had a cold face, the mask on his face was torn off, and his long gold hair turned into wine red. "It is S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent, Avengers hero, Black Widow. I've said it all, taste, your taste is very special." Lewis said nonsense. In the scope of the power of space, not to mention masks, even how many pieces of silicone some women put on plastic surgery pads can be clearly seen. Black Widow simply has nowhere to hide. Faced with Lewis's nonsense, Black Widow actually believed it, and even took a special sniff to see if he really smelled anything. "This is ability, the ability to wander among the flowers, don't worry, no one else can figure it out except me." Black Widow gave Lewis a white look, and Lewis' charm and strength are almost the same standard, making it unstoppable. If hostile, this would be the Avengers' #1 enemy. "Since you recognized me, my mission has failed, why don't you let me go?" Black Widow said coldly. "Tell all of you to go away, I don't want to be known what color underwear I wear every day." Lewis said in a joking tone, but his expression was very cold. "If there is a next time, Fury may have another headache for the pension," Lewis threatened. Chapter 96 is S.H.I.E.L.D. threat? Seeking subscription. Black Widow's face froze. "Originally, I thought that even if I was exposed, others could continue to follow Lewis." Under Lewis' gaze, Black Widow could only helplessly say into the intercom, "Mission failed, all evacuated." After all, Black Widow looked up at Lewis, and said, "My people have withdrawn, you can let me go now." "Are they really gone?" Lewis raised his brows in an affectionate tone. Black Widow couldn't figure out whether Lewis knew that there were other people following him. "Everyone, all evacuated, attention, all evacuated." After receiving other information, Black Widow confirmed it, and finally said, "Are you satisfied now?" Lewis shook his head, and regretfully said, "It seems that I have given you a chance." Tread. Step. 370. Lewis' footsteps were particularly obvious, as if announcing his arrival. Black Widow also became more and more nervous, following behind Lewis. In the jungle, an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. saw Lewis and Black Widow walking here. Reduced his breathing to the limit. "Aren't you coming out yet?" Lewis said with a sneer. But no one responded. "Not coming out?" Lewis raised his hand and aimed at one and put it down. Boom! The gunshot rang out, and a burst of white smoke came out of Lewis' hands. "This is not my pistol, didn't you throw it away? It's just a little magic trick, you won't really believe it." Lewis smiled, looking at the moss-covered stone. A touch of red slowly flowed out from the hit part. "The agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. is hidden here, but was shot and killed by Lewis." Lewis stepped forward, and kicked the disguise almost seamlessly away. The dead agent's eyes stared out. He still hasn't figured out why he was discovered by Lewis. "Do not rest in peace." Black Widow just glanced at this agent, and never paid too much attention. It is understandable to sacrifice for the task. It's just that Black Widow didn't expect that Lewis actually knew the location of the agent so well. "Natasha Romanoff, can you let all your people leave now?" Lewis leaned close to Black Widow's ear and said softly. The hot air exhaled from the mouth made Black Widow's body stiff. This is definitely not teasing, but a deep threat. Black Widow immediately moved away from Lewis, with resentment on his face, and issued the final retreat command on the communicator. Lewis sensed that the agents remaining within the Yellowstone National Park were evacuating rapidly. Until it disappeared within the range covered by Lewis' power of space. "Is it all right now?" Black Widow said with a cold face. This time not only failed to follow Lewis well, but also lost an agent in vain, which made Black Widow very frustrated. Louis looked at Black Widow with a smile, and said, "Isn't there another one here?" Black Widow immediately realized that he was also a member of the agent. It's just that Louis was a little too unreasonable, just looking at Black Widow so coldly. She didn't doubt at all that if she stayed here for a long time without knowing what to do, whether Louis would really destroy flowers with his hands. "Louis, are you ready to betray S.H.I.E.L.D? Black Widow's expression was a little ugly. Louis' every move, including killing the S.H.I.E.L.D agent, can actually be defined as betrayal. "No, I didn't, don't slander me, I just don't like you guys coming to explore my secrets. However, your threat is too great. That's Fury seeing me as a threat." Louis looked at Black Widow, who was gradually going away, and said softly, "I will not be a threat from S.H.I.E.L.D, because I don't regard S.H.I.E.L.D as a threat at all, just don't mess with me." Feeling that Black Widow disappeared within his monitoring range, Louis sighed. In this world, why are there always people who maliciously speculate on others? What a kind person I am, to be suspected like this. Really, people's hearts are not old, and the world is going downhill. Beside Louis, a red figure suddenly appeared. Langton took a wine jar and took a big gulp. He had appeared nearby early in the morning, but only now. "Is that a human woman? It doesn't look as strong as the dwarfs at all, and it looks easy to be killed." Langton said one thing. According to his aesthetics, Black Widow is that ugly type. "Didn't you say there was a breakthrough?" Louis glanced at Langton, and found that what Langton said was the truth. Stumped, has the aesthetics of the dwarf clan been distorted like this? I looked through the notes of the dwarf family and found another method of forging, by building a huge amounts of magic circle to guide the power emperor of a planet to forge metal. Langton had recently encountered too many problems that he could not solve, so he thought of looking through the notes of his predecessors. He did not expect that he would actually find something. So, Louis always wondered if Langton had already done the experiment. "So, I thought that the Earth is also a planet, and I wondered if I could try it. Then I built a small magic circle, and accidentally touched the will of the Earth." Langton said helplessly. He really just tried to see if it was feasible, and then he messed with a big guy. Louis was furious at Langton. "Do you dare to offend the will of the Earth?" Louis knew that Earth definitely had a will of its own, just as Asgard and Wordheim both had wills of their own. It's just that the will of the Earth doesn't usually show up. However, not showing up does not mean that it does not exist. Didn't Langton's stupidity touch the will of the Earth? "So, did you call me here just to tell me the bad news?" Louis said coldly. "Mr. Louis, I didn't mean to." Langton also felt a little wronged. "I am now blacklisted by the will of the Earth, so there is no way to continue to use the Earth to try. If there is a chance, Mr. Louis can send me to other planets and let me try." Louis looked at Langton, and in the end he was not going to scold him anymore. All that Langton did gave Louis a way of thinking. If you want to use Ulu and positional metal, there is absolutely no way to do it on Earth. It is more practical to find some opportunities on other planets. What do you think of Mars? Louis suddenly thought of the blueprint he gave Langton. If you really want to build a suitable armor, it is definitely the most suitable place to build a pair of armor through the power of Mars. Mr. Louis, you are talking about Mars, god of war. That is indeed a great choice, but there is no way for space runes to transport me there. Langton said. Chapter 97 The Visit of Ancient One, subscribe. Langton also wanted to build a large planet-level teleportation array, but unfortunately there was no way. This isn't Asgard Bifrost, where you can go wherever you want. Hearing Langton's words, Louis also tried it, only to find that the largest range he can space jump to is the moon. It's not that the space gem doesn't work, it's that Louis doesn't. Constitution is still too weak, and you need to have a strong physique to use space gems, or build huge amounts of teleportation arrays with space gems. Louis shook his head and asked, "Is the moon okay?" "No, if I use the power of the planet, it will definitely affect the planet. The moon and the earth are too close. If I use the power of the moon, many natural laws on the earth will change." Langton explained. "That's fine." Louis felt that if he did this, the first one to come to him would be the Ancient One Mage, or other gods on earth. "I've come, I just heard your heart say my name." An ethereal voice sounded behind Louis. Louis and Langton attacked from behind at the same time, but two magic circles blocked the attack of Louis and Langton. Ancient One Mage looked at Louis curiously. She also felt the power of the space gem on Louis. So long ago, she felt someone in faraway New York touch the power of the infinite gems. Now it seems that this is the person in front of me. "You know about my existence, and you also know about other gods on earth." Ancient One's voice was very calm, without the slightest emotion, but every sentence hit the bullseye. "I can't see through your past and future. Who are you? There is no past, present, or future." The more Ancient One looked at it, the more she felt Louis' weirdness. She couldn't see any breath of time in Louis' body. It is as if there is no birth, old age, sickness, and death, and no reincarnation. Langton still wanted to resist, but was firmly suppressed by a magic circle, unable to move. Louis didn't respond at all, but just looked at Gu-san indifferently. In an instant, all the luster was lost in the eyes, only the endless depth remained. Louis and Ancient One looked at each other, and Ancient One saw killing, light, and despair in the abyss. Yu Wang stepped on the road of blood and took the final throne. On the king's ladder, there are many bones. Then in an instant, all the faces were left with only the depth. "What you can see is what I want you to see. I don't want you to see, you can't see anything." Ancient One felt the dominance of a king in Louis, a feeling she had only seen in a few people. "Odin of Asgard, Zeus of Olympus. I understand, young king, I hope you will not harm the earth, otherwise I can only use my life to protect the earth," Ancient One said to Louis. The surrounding space twisted, and Ancient One left from one of the magic circles. Langton was no longer imprisoned. He immediately got up and came to Louis, looking at Louis with some concern. "Mr. Louis, are you all right?" Langton shouted loudly. A pair of big hands grabbed Louis' arms and shook them vigorously. Lui's deep eyes suddenly recovered, and he looked around in a daze. "Where is Ancient One? Wasn't she still here just now?" Louis asked suspiciously. She and Mr. Louis looked at each other for a while and then left. Langton said, he didn't hear what Ancient One said to Louis at all. Looking at each other? "Why don't I remember? Forget it, it's good that this boss doesn't bother me." Louis rubbed his arm that was a little sore from being shaken by Langton, thinking like this. "Mr. Louis, who is that woman? Why do I feel that she is stronger than King Dwarf, not even weaker than Odin? She is an Asgardian from Earth, you touched the will of Earth before, and it's normal for her to come to your door." Louis clarified the purpose of Ancient One's visit. "It must be Langdon, a fool, who caused trouble." Fortunately, however, there were no major problems. Otherwise, Ancient One wouldn't just let Langdon go. "I will consider the matter of Mars, you help me research the formula of adamantium first. I'm trying, as a blacksmith the first time is definitely to choose the metal that interests me the most." "Okay, adamantium speeds up the schedule, I'm going to need them for a lot of my future armor." "Don't worry, leave it to me, hick." Langton waved his hand, and then burped, reeking of alcohol. A magic circle emerged on the ground, and Langton returned to his workshop after passing through the magic circle. Forging wine pairing lasts forever. Louis rolled his eyes, and he could only hope that Langton didn't get into trouble with drinking. But to forge armor through Mars, the space jump technology required is a big problem. With existing technology, it takes more than 100 days to fly from Earth to Mars. There is simply no time. Louis thought of Ancient One as the big mage. In Langton's perception, Yunyi was even more dangerous than King Dwarf and Odin. If you want to get away to go to Mars, in a short time, going to Ancient One is definitely the best choice. A space barrier appeared in front of Louis, and the other end was blocked by wind and snow. Through the space barrier, Louis could feel the cruel weather there. Louis stepped out, and the space barrier disappeared in place. 110. Here is the foothills of the Himalayas and the location of Kamartaj. When Louis appeared in the Himalayas, the moment he sat on the top of the mountain, he immediately felt the arrival of Louis. Caecilius, you go, there are guests here. The voice of Ancient One Mage reached Caecilius' ears. Caecilius, who was practicing, stood up, came to the teleportation array leading to the foot of the mountain, and walked in. With the power of the space gem, Louis found that this place has long been blocked by the magic of Ancient One. While thinking about how to find Kamartaj, Caecilius appeared in front of Louis. Seeing Louis, Caecilius' first reaction was to be frivolous, and Louis looked like he was not doing his job properly. Would such a person be a guest of Kamartaj? Caecilius was skeptical. It was also the first time for Louis to see Caecilius. At this time, Caecilius had just started learning magic with Ancient One, and he was still studying orthodox white magic. The whole person does not look like the one that was eroded by darkness later. Are you Kamartaj's guest? Caecilius looked around but saw no one else. Finally, he set his sights on Louis. For the past 4 weeks, there was only Louis alone. Chapter 98 Login to Kamartaj, for subscription. On the other side of the earth, the sky has darkened. It's late at night. The agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are still waiting for Louis to appear outside, and everyone wants to know what Louis is doing inside. But no one dared to go in. Black Widow judged that Louis installed countless miniature cameras in Yellowstone National Park during the period when it was closed. Otherwise, it would be difficult to explain every move of himself and others would be discovered by Louis. Ah! Black Widow rubbed his nose. It's a bit chilly late at night, but the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. never give up. Kamartaj. Louis held a cup of tea and took a sip happily. The tea is a bit hot, but it is brewed with meltwater from the Himalayas. Louis couldn't drink anything, but he felt clear in his heart every time he took a sip. In the room, only Louis was doing it quietly. After Caecilius served Louis a cup of tea, he never appeared again. The wind and snow outside the house did not blow into the house at all. Even with the windows open, the wind and snow would be blocked. What Louis didn't know was that the news of his coming to Kamartaj had spread throughout Kamartaj. The one who spoke out was naturally Caecilius. He was a little unbalanced. When he entered Kamartaj, he went through a lot of hardships, but Louis came to Kamartaj very easily. The key is that Ancient One Mage asked himself to meet Louis in person. Caecilius felt that this was unfair, so he told other students about Louis' appearance in Kamartaj. A newcomer came to Kamartaj, the teacher seemed to value him very much, and he came here without any obstacles. It's not what I imagined, I thought everyone would pass the test to get into Kamartaj. Caecilius simply stated a fact, but in fact he was complaining about unfairness. He was just targeting Louis. Are you new? I haven't seen it yet. Modu said in a low voice, and a group of disciples were practicing in the square. I've seen him, he looks very frivolous, like a playboy. Caecilius said his first impression of Louis. But he seemed to be right. Is that so? I'm going to see what kind of person this is, who can enter Kamartaj without passing the test. Modu glanced at Caecilius. This fellow disciple had some small thoughts of his own. The purpose of practice is not pure, but there is no pure person in the world, and Ancient One Mage agreed with him to enter Kamartaj, which means he recognized his existence. But for Louis to break Kamartaj's rules, this made Mordo feel uncomfortable. He has always claimed to be the most powerful mage after the Ancient One Mage, and wants to inherit the Ancient One Mage's power zone. But Ancient One never seemed to mention this matter, just asked him to teach other juniors and juniors. This made Mordo very aggrieved. Now that Louis appeared in Camartage, Mordo felt threatened. "Let's not go," the teacher said. "He is a guest of Camartage, it would not be too bad if he collided." "Humph, am I afraid of a little mortal? I didn't feel the breath of magic in him, but if it's a common man, isn't it a little bit to shoot a common man?" "Caecilius, you don't need to say anything, I know what I do." "Senior brother Mordo. You're here watching them train, I'm going to meet this Camartage guest." Under Caecilius' instigation, Mordo couldn't sit still. He is not a fool, he knows that Caecilius' words have the meaning of complaining and stirring up disputes. But, Caecilius didn't lie, that's enough. Mordo just couldn't swallow this breath, and was also worried that the arrival of Louis would make his status drop. While Louis was drinking tea, he felt someone coming at the door. The power of space is suppressed here, but you can still feel the movement around you. Boom boom boom. There was a knock on the door, with some malicious intentions. Louis looked at the door coldly and said, "Come in." Was he wondering if he had offended anyone in Camartage? "I have only seen one Caecilius from the beginning to the end, why does this person at the door bring malice to himself?" Click. The wooden door was opened, and Mordo walked into the room. The first time he saw Louis, Mordo felt very uncomfortable. Louis felt like a rich man, even if he was sitting there, he had a unique aura of superiority. This kind of breath is natural, and Mordo doesn't like it very much. But Mordo didn't show it, just said, "I am Mordo from Camartage. When the teacher is not around, I will manage this place. I wonder what this gentleman is planning to do when he comes to Camartage." "Number Mordo," Louis said softly. He knew who the man in front of him was, Baron Mordo, and Doctor Strange's lifelong enemy. A narrow-minded guy, Louis understands why Mordo is hostile to him. The feeling is that his arrival may affect his position in Camartage. Louis said with a smile, "My name is Louis. I came to Camartage to find Ancient One Mage. I met Ancient One Mage in Wyoming today. I just have some questions I want to ask Ancient One Mage." Hearing what Louis said, Yuandil was shocked. Today, the Ancient One Mage's aura disappeared for a moment, he knew it, but he didn't expect to meet this frivolous guy in front of him. More importantly, this Louis actually appeared here following the Ancient One Mage. This Louis definitely knows space magic, and can be teleported over such a long distance. As for not feeling the magical breath, it is definitely because Lu, Zhao Hao, Yi's strength is too strong. Wrong. Louis looked too young, how could such a young person possess such powerful magic? Unless it is, there is a special treasure. Is Mr. Louis also the heir of the ancient magic inheritance family? Mordo asked. "No, I don't know any magic," Louis replied. Now he really wants to know what the hell Mordo is planning. But Mr. Louis appeared here across more than half of the earth. This is not something the common people can do. Mordo asked tentatively. "This is my secret." Louis squinted his eyes, like a person whose secret was discovered. Mordo's face changed constantly, he has come all the time, but now he retreats, and if other juniors know about it, they will all laugh at him. Moreover, Louis' reaction made Mordo almost conclude that there is definitely a treasure in Louis' body. Chapter 99. Is this the only skill? Seeking subscription. Mordo narrowed his eyes and looked at Louis. Du Men looked like a playboy whose eyes were dazzled by wine and sex, without any magical breath on his body. But such people are the easiest to deceive. This kind of ancestor may have been a demon mage, and the items left behind are all. Mordo took a fancy to it. I don't know what Mr. Louis is going to do when he comes to Camartage. It's just something about the magic circle, I need to talk to Ancient One Mage. Modu sat across from Louis very cordially and nodded. Louis doesn't know magic, but he came to Ancient One Mage to ask about the magic circle. It proves that Louis definitely has treasures related to the magic circle. Modu looked at Louis with even more enthusiasm. Ancient One Mage is still in a different space, and there is no way to come back in a short time. I don't know what relevant knowledge Mr. Louis needs. I, Modu, can also help. Modu said with a smile. Louis frowned. He didn't expect that he would appear so unluckily, just in time to meet Ancient One Mage going to another space. However, this Modu knew at a glance that he was harboring evil intentions and was not a good person. Lui has no interest in cooperating with this kind of person. Don't bother Modu Mage, I can just wait here for a few days, I have a lot of time, and the scenery of Kamartaj is also very good. Modu's face instantly collapsed 707. He didn't expect Louis to be so ignorant, and he refused without even thinking about it. Mr. Louis, Kamartaj not only has beautiful scenery, but also hidden dangers. Modu kindly reminded. I don't need to bother you, a little danger can't hurt me. Then I hope that Mr. Louis can spend these few days in peace. There was an imperceptible gloom on Modu's face, because Louis' answer was too ignorant. He didn't intend to contact Modu at all. Modu didn't even know how he was discovered, but this Louis didn't seem to want to talk to him much. Modu turned and left, with a gloomy face, and walked out of the room. Click. The door was closed. An inexplicable breath was circulating, and the snowy night outside disappeared outside the window. The candles in the room are getting darker and darker, as if they have lost their source of light. Obviously the candle is still burning, but the darkness still engulfs all the rest of the place. In the darkness, dark shadow tentacles stretched out towards Louis, like the pages of a monster. It's kind of disgusting, although I know it, a fi, is just a kind of magic. Louis had goosebumps, and the moment Modu walked out of the room, he felt Modu's hands. Is this room sealed with black magic? Sensing the sense of threat brought by the dark tentacles, Louis looked slightly cold. It seemed that Modu was not prepared to let him go. Howl in despair. Modu's voice came from all directions. This is the space created by Modu, every move in the dark space, Modu is clear, these tentacles are also controlled by Modu. If you are willing to take out that treasure of yours, I can let you go, otherwise, just fall into darkness. I won't kill you, but I will make you feel the despair that is more painful than death. While Modu was speaking, several shadow warriors emerged from the darkness in the room. Those dark tentacles also gradually increased, reaching as many as a dozen, which seemed densely packed. Well, there are always people who can't recognize their own strength and are overestimated. Louis sneered, the transforming device was already in his hand. Is this your baby? Modu said. This is to make you feel desperate, baby. A transformation belt appeared around Louis' waist. Henshin. The transfiguration mobile phone was inserted into the belt, and the pale gold light enveloped Louis' body while dispelling the surrounding darkness. When those shadow warriors and dark tentacles touched the faint gold light, it was like being cut and smashed by a sharp weapon. Fragmented. The cut dark fragments slowly squirmed, wanting to return to their own body. Tread. The pitch-black boots inlaid with silver trim crushed this dark force and wiped it clean. Even the magic-reinforced ground was stamped out with a pothole. The black crown in Phnom Penh is like the coming of an emperor, and the face of scarlet red is like a gemstone with huge amounts of red. Kamen Rider, Orga. This is the first time Louis has used this set of armor, and its power is almost comparable to Faiza's burst mode. It is here that Louis dared to use it unscrupulously. Here is where Kamartaj was blessed by the magic of Ancient One Mage. No matter how you fight, it is unlikely to cause too much damage. Is this your whole card? Without the power of magic, you can't beat me. Although Mordo felt the threat from Orga, he didn't feel the power of magic. However, such a treasure is enough for Modu to pay attention to. Give this treasure to me, and I can spare your life. Modu showed a hint of greed. I think it's better for you to die. With a cold face, Louis grabbed the dark tentacles that wanted to attack from behind with one hand. Boom! The huge amounts of power directly crushed and exploded the dark tentacles. Not even a shard remains. Even if these dark tentacles are smashed, they can return to the main body. The best way is to completely obliterate. Yumoto was angry, and Louis' behavior was undoubtedly provoking his own strength. I don't know good from bad, even if Ancient One Mage comes back, I can say that you are provoking my history area. Modu didn't hide it at the moment, he just took a fancy to Louis' strength. He has even thought about what to say to Ancient One Mage. Modu's rage has aroused the anger of this dark space, and all the darkness is shaking and distorting. Swish swish swish! The Shadow Warrior was constantly condensed by the darkness and rushed towards Louis. These mindless summons are nothing more than letting Louis come to know his own power. Bang bang bang! With every punch and kick, arms and legs are enveloped in pale gold light. Crush all opponents you meet. I see how much power you have squandered, the voices of the slaves who gave me the darkness echoed in the dark space. Here, he is the master, he is the only king. But it seemed that someone didn't want him to get what he wanted, and Orga, who was surrounded by countless shadow warriors, grabbed a beam saber from the void. A clockwise circle is a huge amount of energy burst, and in the light, the shadow warriors are all melted away. Louis formed a sword flower and stood the sword in front of him. The emperor, like Orga, at the moment's posture was a little lazy, and he said casually, "Is this the only thing you can do?" Chapter 100, Didi Jean, for subscription. Louis' tone was full of contempt. It seems to say, you order food, and I haven't had enough, you are over. Modu's face became more and more ugly. Louis' provocation deeply angered him. No one has ever dared to underestimate his magical power, but this person in front of him did just that. Don't talk, are you? Louis said with a sneer. Modu was so angry that he didn't speak, and Louis was still unyielding, pointing the Orga beam saber in his hand to the sky. He knew that Modu could definitely see it. You don't speak, so I'll call until you speak. The Orga beam saber burst into light at this moment, and every swing was a ray of light. God blocks and kills God. Buddha blocks and kills Buddha. Under such an attack, these shadow warriors constructed by black magic hardly have any resistance ability. Touch it and die. The light cut through the surrounding darkness. Tear. The darkness was instantly melted like butter meeting fire. The structure of the house beyond the darkness can be vaguely seen. It seems that this dark space is not very good. Louis squinted his eyes. The beam saber in his hand is merciless, slashing wantonly. Every slashing will take away a piece of darkness and melt it. The dark space that was originally pitch black slowly returned to its original state, and the light slowly returned. You can also hear the sound of wind and snow outside. Modu's dark space was cracked by violence. Modu was resentful, but the greed in his eyes became more and more obvious. Louis's treasure was so powerful that people wanted to own it and wear it immediately. How could such a treasure fall into the hands of a common man like you? Modu said, driven by desire. The virtuous live in it, and it is mine. The dark space that was supposed to be broken was filled up in an instant, and the darkness suppressed all senses. The only light comes from the Geniki Orga itself. Tread, tread. Footsteps were coming towards Louis one by one. Death and darkness played a dangerous theme. TCH, did you do it yourself? I thought you were going to be a coward. Louis rubbed his wrists and moved his joints. He has been waiting for Modu to end in person. You will not leave Kamartaj alive, I will kill you and throw you from the top of the mountain. Modu said indifferently. Then let's see if you have the ability. I suddenly want to kill you now. Louis said coldly. The light around him blocked the intruding darkness, and the darkness seemed to be afraid of this force, and the space became hazy. It was much better than the pitch black before my eyes. Modu's figure also appeared in front of Louis, stepping on a magic circle, and the darkness seemed to spread from here. A heart-stopping treasure, it shouldn't appear on your body. Modu licked his lips, made no secret of his greed, twisted a magic circle with both hands and attacked Louis. The power in the magic circle exploded the moment it touched the beam saber. The aftermath of the explosion was absorbed by the dark space. In other words, the movement here will not be transmitted to the outside world at all. Louis took a few steps back, but found that there was no way to move. The feet were grabbed by two dark tentacles, and with this amazing effort, countless dark tentacles popped out. At first, it was constantly wrapped around Orga's body. A single dark tentacle was weak, but the strength of countless dark tentacles was enough. Even Orga felt the pain. See, this is the charm of magic. Modu walked slowly in front of Louis, with a triumphant smile on his lips. However, he was still very vigilant, holding a magic circle in one hand at any time to prevent Louis from counterattacking. Cut, disgusting dark magic, cowardly turtle. Louis looked at Modu with contempt, and the blood energy gathered on his legs. Even the dark tentacles trembled, and the power of destruction exploded instantly. This foot directly crushed the dark matter covering the ground. Crush. Penetrate. Break the blockade of the dark space. Strong vibrations were felt throughout Kamartaj. What happened? Why is there such a strong vibration all of a sudden? Is this an earthquake? Countless disciples of Kamartaj were discussing. Caecilius looked towards a corner of Kamartaj. He could feel that the vibration came from there. It seems that Modu and that person have had a conflict, but they don't know who will win. Mordo's voice was magically carried to Kamartaj. I was experimenting with magic and caused an explosion, so go ahead and do your thing. 0, seeking flowers 00. Modu's tone didn't change in any way, but Modu in the dark space has now entered rage. Louis' offensive ability was too powerful and went straight through the dark space. Let Modu's plan almost be exposed. Go to hell. Modu decided not to hold back. Even he felt that Louis' strength was tricky. The magic power is gathering, and countless magic factors are flying in the air, condensing, and finally turning into attacks one after another and rushing towards Agra. Louis felt a trance for a while. There seemed to be countless people rushing towards him in front of him, some were bleeding, and some wanted to kill Louis even if they were dead. Some shouted invincibility and justice, transformed into Kamen Riders, and came to kill themselves. 0. Modo's magic touched Louis' fantasy, causing Louis's spirit to fall into an unstable state. Modu watched as Louis stood motionless, letting those tentative attacks hit him. You know, Louis is definitely affected by the spirit. People who do not learn magic can easily lose themselves on the spiritual level and be attacked. Once the soul dies, it means the end of life. Great chance, you die for me. Modu laughed, as if he saw Louis buried in his own hands. The maximum degree of magic gathered by both hands, like an unstable chemical factor, hit Agra. Getting closer. But Modu's smile froze on his face. The instant the magical energy touched Agra, Oga disappeared. Tyrannical magical power may explode in the dark sky. But the target person disappeared into the dark space. No, how is this possible? Modu looked around, but felt the crisis in time. The whole person rolled forward, dodging the sword that stably slashed at his head. Good luck. Agra appeared behind Modu, and Louis' voice sounded lightly. You let me see a very uncomfortable illusion, in return, please die. Louis said coldly. Agra held the beam saber high, and the energy center gathered almost all the energy into this emperor's sword. The energy of the light gold is gathered into a huge amounts of blade. Slash with one sword. Earth Emperor slashes 0. End of the chapter. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.